The sound of bells came from St. Mary's Church. The bride entered the room and was introduced as Erin Regman. From a formal point of view, it was supposed to be a perfect ducal wedding, so the girl shouldn't worry. However, the guests' looks clearly revealed disgust, contempt, and disdain. Some guests even looked with lust. In all this, you won't find the joy of an ordinary wedding even with fire. The priest blessed the beautiful man and woman. Erin stood at the altar and thought that none of these wishes would come true. Today, the girl was marrying a man who despised her and would cut her throat. As before, misfortune would befall the helpless Erin. The guy demanded that the girl give him everything she had, including money and valuables. She did not understand whether he had taken up gambling again. The guy was very angry because she talked too much, after all. Thanks to him, she was still alive. Emily didn't back down. The guy had already borrowed so much money from her that he couldn't pay it back. Out of anger, he pushed the girl. Behind her was a staircase. It was an absurd death, marking the end of her another miserable day. After some time, Emily woke up and could not understand what had happened and what kind of girl she saw in the reflection of the mirror. She assumed that her soul had moved to another body. A maid came into the room to remind Lady Erin what day it was. The girl turned around, confused by the way she was called, like the heroine from the novel about giving up an obsession that she read last night. Lizzie Sinclair, the illegitimate daughter of a count's family, bright, innocent, and beautiful as the goddess of spring. Because of her origins, she was persecuted by the count's family and had an unhappy childhood. And then Lizzie caught the eye of the Ludwig couple and went to live in the duchy, where she met tough competition without concessions to win her heart, and this is where the obsession from the title begins. Erin's role in this novel is simple, stupid, and greedy. The stupid villainess, blinded by love and tainted by jealousy, constantly sabotaged, trying to harm Lizzie. Blinded by jealousy, Erin did everything she could to kill Lizzie. Having the Earl as a caring father, she grew up never worrying about money. Having gathered the Countess, the nanny said that everything was ready and that the girl was probably already expected. Erin thanked her and ran off. The nanny even turned around in surprise when she heard the words of gratitude. The girl decided that she needed to correct the mistakes of the main character, especially since she remembered the whole plot. The idea occurred to her that if she behaved well, she could get the love of her family for free. She ran into her father's room to wish him good morning, but it didn't take long for Erin's expectations to be dashed. The Count had been drinking wine since early morning. He was not pleased that his daughter dared to call such a late hour in the morning. Since the Countess arrived too late, he threw her out, ordering the door to be closed from the other side. Synchronization of information from memory has started. The girl turned out to be wrong about Erin's image. An arrogant and impudent villain, but that was only on the outside. Erin was locked up, begging to be released from the dungeon. The Count believed that the girl should pay for being fed and raised. To everyone else, Erin was just a walking billboard for the family, adorned with fancy dresses and expensive jewelry. At home, the girl was a target for beatings, even from the servants. Erin was the most expensive doll of Count Regman. The father yelled at his daughter that she had been out of her mind since the morning, that today she could not make any mistakes, that she could not give people a reason to notice even one flaw. Erin agreed with everything, thinking in her mind about why she had such a family, both in her past life and in this one. She decided to review the information again. The current Duke Ludwig and Count Regman had been rivals since childhood. At that time, the power of the two families was close to equal, but Count Ludwig's family made a greater contribution to the war and received the title of Duke. Count Regman believed that the title of Duke had been brazenly stolen from under his nose, so he married Erin off to obtain information through her to destroy the duchy. It was hard to call it luck, but in her past life, Erin knew how to find ways to survive in adverse situations. If she didn't act like Erin in the original, she would definitely be able to survive. In novels in which the heroine is reborn as a villain, there is always some kind of crisis at the beginning, so the girl decided today not to behave like a real countess. A huge palace appeared before the girl. They arrived at the Duchy of Ludwig. The butler greeted the Counts of Regman and invited them inside, where the Duke and Duchess were waiting for them. Turning to Erin, the Earl smiled at his daughter and gently urged her on. The girl thought that her father's attitude had changed dramatically, but she didn't really care, since she decided to leave this house in a week. Erin was pleasantly shocked, because in front of her sat characters from a book she loved, especially such beautiful characters. The Duchess politely asked if the guests were hungry and assured them that the dishes would soon be served on the table and they would begin their meal. The girl noticed the main male character Cliff, as she thought. He was incredibly handsome. His eyes were golden, as if they were about to melt. Then, her attention was drawn to a girl who looked like the goddess of spring. Most likely it was Lizzie. If this was Lizzie, then it meant that Aaron's future husband was sitting next to her. The Countess couldn't come to her senses after realizing that she was about to fall in love with this guy. But now, at least it became clear why the real heroine held on to him so much. The straight and sharp nose and jawline that together create an arrogant image, the broad chest, thin waist, and hips of this guy. Erin realized that she was looking at the guy too, obviously. Embarrassed, she decided that she needed to pull herself together. Long live the world of aristocrats. Finally, the performance began. The Count claimed that his parental heart would not calm down, and he could not simply send his daughter away. He would like Erin to take a few maids with her, as the girl would certainly be more comfortable with them. Smiling tactfully, the Duchess said that their maids were second to none. The Count was persistent. He asked the Duchess if she had not brought one when she got married. Erin turned all the attention to herself, apologizing to the Duke for her father and asking him to forget about this request, since it is understandable that the father is worried, because his daughter is getting married very young. On the way home, the Count began to shout unbearably at his daughter, saying that not only had she not helped him, but she had also become the biggest obstacle. From this point on, the story really begins. Erin tried to convince her father that he was wrong, since his request was too obvious, and it was clear that the Duke and Duchess understood why they wanted to bring the maids, and they, on the contrary, should be convinced of the purity of their intentions. Count Rigmon began to listen to his daughter, but he did not understand what she could do if she was there alone. The girl was convinced that she had to go there alone, because if nothing happened, the Duke and Duchess would relax their vigilance. It was necessary to quickly dispel all suspicions. After Erin gained their trust, she would say that she was homesick or ask to bring one of the maids. From that day on and for the next week, Erin felt like she was walking on a knife edge. And now, finally, she was standing in a wedding dress. The girl knew that after the exchange of rings, everything would be over. It seemed that Erin's husband was uncomfortable with even the slightest touch from his wife. Finally, the girl has a life in which she can leisurely enjoy peace and quiet and pursue her hobbies without worrying about being hit by her father or older brother. Erin finally felt alive. There was a knock on the girl's room. It was Lizzie. It was clear that the girl was afraid, but she held her ground. She had come to tell Erin something. The girl remembered that such an episode happened right after the wedding. After the ceremony, Lizzie visits Erin and wants to apologize for Killian's rudeness. However, her apology only angers Erin even more. She couldn't blame the cold Killian, so all her anger was directed at Lizzie for wearing a white dress to their wedding. The girl grinned and understood why this had happened, but she, and not her heroine, had no reason to be angry at the little goddess. The little girl said that although Killian seems cold, he has a very warm heart. Erin wondered how she could hate such a beauty. Bright, shiny blonde hair that seems to shine on its own, big light blue eyes, pure and innocent, such a cute appearance and a kind, righteous heart, a must-have character in a novel about a girl who gets into the body of a villainess. Erin reassured Lizzie that she had nothing to worry about, especially since this marriage was an agreement between their families, so there was no point in her being offended by Killian. The little goddess beamed, for Lady Erin was so kind and mature. The Countess complimented the girl that her dress suited her incredibly well and that she couldn't even compare to it. Lizzie blushed. The little girl said goodbye to her mistress. Erin thought the girl was very cute. She wanted to hug her. At this point, the wedding episode ended. The girl was left alone, so she decided to spend time usefully for herself and relax. Her peace was disturbed by the sudden arrival of Killian, who was outraged that his newly made wife was taking a bath without him. He did not understand his wife's surprise, assuming that she was expecting someone else. The thing is that there was nothing like this in the book, so the girl didn't expect it. How it infuriated Erin that Killian was so handsome and yet such a jerk. She had no reason to hate the guy, and didn't even have the strength to be angry with him. She said that she didn't expect to see him here, after the wedding ceremony, at which he didn't even allow her to put a ring on him. Erin asked if her husband was going to sleep here. He turned around angrily and left without saying a word. The girl froze in bewilderment, and it was unclear why Killian had come at all. On the way from the bride's room, the guy met Leahy and asked if he hadn't been in this room. Killian said he was there, but Erin, like him, had no expectations for that night, as he found her lying in the bathtub, almost dozing. Lizzie couldn't believe it and tried to justify the Countess. The young Duke interrupted her and, stroking her head, said that she thought too highly of everyone. Killian reminded the little girl of what kind of person Count Rigmon was and what his intentions were regarding this wedding. It was just their way of making fun of the Ludwig family. Lizzie remembered Aaron's words regarding the wedding. The guy realized that the girl knew something and demanded to tell him. She said that Lady Aaron had complimented her on her dresses, and she had immediately blushed. Killian misunderstood and thought that Lizzie was being scolded for wearing clothes she didn't choose. The little goddess explained that she only praised and said nothing more. The lady must have been upset to hear these suggestions. The guy laughed. He reminded Lizzie of Aaron's dress, not at all luxurious, slutty, and insanely indecent. Lizzie's pupils widened in surprise that Killian had called his wife indecent. She couldn't comprehend how someone could say such a thing. Changing the subject, the guy asked if there was anything else the girl wanted to tell him. It was as if she wanted to tell or ask something, but her tongue did not turn to say it. Killian interrupted her and asked if she wanted to know how he felt. The conversation between the two was interrupted by Cliff, who approached them. Lizzie was delighted to see him, but Killian, on the contrary, was dejected. The next morning, even after all the agony of yesterday, Erin woke up on time. She had never felt so good in her life. Having decided that since she has a healthy body, she needs to think more positively. If it works out, she can live like a sweet daughter-in-law. The girl remembered the plot. Killian was a secondary character in love with Lizzie, but his parents could have been completely different. The Duke and Duchess of Ludwig, who had warmly welcomed Lizzie, might have opened their hearts to Erin, but their first meeting had not gone very smoothly. To begin with, greeting them seemed like a great idea to the girl. One of the main rules for surviving a villainous reincarnation novel was, of course, to gain the trust of the main and secondary characters. In fact, if Erin wants to survive in the Ludwig family, the opinions of the Duke and Duchess are much more important than Killian's. All she wanted was to quietly enjoy life somewhere in the corner of the mansion. To do this, the girl definitely needed to win the trust of the Ludwigs. She decided that no mother-in-law would hate her daughter-in-law who came to say hello the morning after the wedding. Erin found the very bell she read about in the books, and with the help of it and the maids, transforming into the daughter-in-law won't be difficult. The maid came to the ringing of the bell. The lady asked to prepare her for the exit. The Countess decided to first get to know the maid, who introduced herself as Anna. Erin asked Anna if all the clothes she brought with her were so lush and vulgar, and the maid confirmed this. The lady came to the conclusion that if she wore something like that, the Duke and Duchess would be horrified, and the meeting would hardly be pleasant. Lady Erin asked her maid to go to the workshop and ask for her clothes to be altered so that her chest would be covered and those nasty frills would be removed. The Countess suddenly remembered that yesterday was the first wedding night. Should she make a few bloodstains on the bed? She decided not to focus on it. Otherwise, if she did it herself, Killian would clearly not be happy. In the original story, Killian was willing to give his all for Lizzie. Erin's mind flashed back to the guy's arrival yesterday, and she wondered if he had suddenly appeared just to have a fight. Regardless, the girl was pleased to see Killian's handsome face twice in one day. Before Erin could even dream about her husband, her bridal gown and dress were ready. She caught herself thinking that she had decided that she wasn't interested in the guy, and now, all morning, she had been thinking only about him. Erin greeted their lordships, the Duke and Duchess, saying that she had come to see if they had slept well. The Duchess said that the girl must have been tired yesterday, but she still came early in the morning to greet them, and it was clear from her face that they were flattered. Accepting the invitation to sit down, Erin found another cup of tea. It was probably for her. The girl was sure that the Ludwigs had already been informed that their son had not slept with her. The Duke began the dialogue by saying that he knew that the Count had raised the girl as his beloved daughter. He wondered if she knew anything about running a business as the mistress of an aristocratic household. Without thinking, Erin replied that she knew how to handle a budget, manage, and work with documents, pointing out that in the duchy, they might do it all differently, but if she was taught it, she would learn it all quickly. The Duke replied that it seemed that the Count had taught her only this properly. Erin knew that they wouldn't look kindly on her, but now the man was so brazenly talking about how she came here to steal documents. The girl got out of the situation by saying that if she did not deserve their trust, then they could teach her something else, and she would certainly cope. The Duchess interrupted her husband, saying that it was excellent that the Count had taught her everything, which meant that she would be able to help her in 2 weeks, and if she needed anything, she should say so right now. Erin asked to introduce a person who would show her around the estate, and the woman promised to find a good guide. After leaving the room, the girl stopped to catch her breath. Her breathing was so short that she thought she would die. A stranger approached her and asked if she was okay. Erin smiled and said that everything was fine. She was just a little worried. Baron Renan Filch stood in front of the girl. The Duchess had instructed the Duke's assistant, who as a servant was responsible for its paperwork, to introduce Aaron to the estate, as well as Anna, who was introduced to her as a servant, were not even mentioned in the original work. So Aaron was a little nervous with people she had no information about. Baron Renan asked if she wanted to make her rounds right now, but he had a lot of work today, so he wouldn't be able to spare much time. Having apologized, the Countess hurried to begin her tour right away. The first thing she saw was the jewelry hall, where the duchy's family jewels were kept and could also be worn for special occasions. The next room contained weapons and armor. This room was mainly used by his lordship and the two gentlemen. All of it was made by the hands of famous craftsmen. The great library was the heart of the duchy and contained many rare books. Renan explained that any member of the Duke's family could enter the library at any time, and the same applied to the Sistine Hall, where new works of art were exhibited every month. Erin was very happy with this opportunity, because in her past life she couldn't go to exhibitions because the ticket price was too high for her. But here, you could say, it's a museum right in your home. Next, the Countess's view fell on the Sistine Hall, and here she had no words to describe all the beauty around her. Since the estate was huge, the Baron said that they would stop here for today. Erin thanked him. She was amazed at what a beautiful place she lived in. The girl complimented the guy. She had a very beautiful voice, and it was very eloquent in itself. She didn't notice how time flew by. Renan Filch looked embarrassed, saying that he was only doing his job, and if she didn't mind, he would conduct the rest of the tour the day after tomorrow. Since they were passing by this place, he decided to tell Erin about the large terrace. It was convenient to look out onto the courtyard from it. It is often used when guests come to the estate. His lordship likes to sit and chat there. On this terrace, Erin saw Lizzie, Cliff, and Killian, chatting pleasantly, her husband keeping his eyes on the little goddess. The Baron was puzzled as to why Mr. Killian was there. Of course, the newly made groom had been drinking tea with another woman since the morning, so his bewilderment was quite natural. The girl tried to remember what her heroine did in real history. Erin got ready to leave, calling Renan with her and reminding him that he had things to do. The first question the Duke asked his assistant was what he thought of Erin. The Baron reported that the girl listened to him attentively, surprisingly, quickly understood the structure of the estate. She especially liked the Sistine Hall. Renan Filch did not notice anything strange about her. Contrary to rumors, the girl showed herself to be very worthy. The Baron remembered that there was something after all. When they were walking across the large terrace after the excursion, they came across Lizzie drinking tea in the company of two young gentlemen. The Duke's expression immediately changed. He asked his son not to give reason for complaints, especially since seeing the groom flirting with another woman right after the wedding was unperturbed. His lordship explained to his son that in order for Count Rigmond not to side with Archduke Langston, he must be patient until the end of this year, but he immediately broke his promise. Renan began to reassure the gentleman that Erin had not even paid attention to this. Of course, it was unknown what was in her thoughts, but in order not to raise a scandal, she simply left, pretending that nothing had happened. The Duke smirked. Erin Regman was quite an unusual girl. After dinner, a maid came to Erin's table to clear everything up. Maybe because the girl tried to eat only at home, she felt very uncomfortable sitting without helping the maid. The lady praised Anna and suggested that she go have lunch if she had not had lunch yet. The maid looked at her with bewilderment, but thanked her for her concern. At that moment, Erin thought that her words could arouse suspicion. The girl thought that she had made a good impression on the Duke and Duchess, so she could breathe a sigh of relief for now, but she only had to decide how to treat Lizzie. Lizzie Sinclair was destined to become the main character of this world. However, her life was not easy until she came into the Ludwig family. Sinclair's son and daughter constantly abused Lizzie, an illegitimate child, and her home became a prison where she was constantly oppressed. By helping Duchess Ludwig avoid falling off her horse, Lizzie caught her attention. Angered by the harsh treatment of the good-natured girl, the Ludwigs bought the rights to the girl for a huge amount of money from Sinclair. The Sinclair family, by hastily renouncing their parental rights, missed the opportunity to become related to the duchy, and later they went bankrupt and deeply regretted it. By the end of the book, there was not a single positive character left with a bad ending, unlike Erin. The girl's real life, one might say, was full of troubles from beginning to end. During my year of working in the company, the management abused their position so many times. She broke up with her boyfriend over text when she saw him walking into a motel with another woman. The girl was walking home, thinking that from now on she would only read novels while lying in bed, but suddenly she died after falling down the stairs. Erin wondered if her parents were worried about her, but they were probably more concerned about her brother's fate, so she decided that she would only worry about herself from now on. Under the tree, the Countess saw Lizzie reading a book. She wondered if maybe instead of avoiding her, she should go and befriend her. At that moment, she saw Killian approach the little goddess. The guy asked what she was reading. The girl was reading the history of the imperial family, since she still had not received a proper education. Because Lizzie didn't know much, it was difficult for the Duke to determine the girl's future. The guy said that if she wanted to study, he would be happy to help. She should just say if she needed anything. Erin thought that was to be expected from a secondary character. Cliff would tell the girl not to worry about it, and just live her life as she pleases, and he would be there for her. Once the Countess decided to stop eavesdropping when she heard that they were talking about her, Lizzie couldn't understand how Killian had left his wife again. Finally, Erin heard what her husband thought of her, that she was just a hostage here who would stay here for a while and then disappear. Throwing her cup of tea on the floor, the blonde girl grabbed her head and screamed, "Why this girl? Why this damn girl of all people?" The blonde girl was Layla Sinclair, the Sinclairs' youngest daughter. Her brother, Damien Sinclair, the eldest son of the Sinclairs, came into the room at the sound of the scream, and he immediately realized that his sister was furious that Erin Rigman had married Killian Ludwig. The girl couldn't understand why Rigman, Damien mockingly said that the Ludwigs had such a hobby, collecting useless things. What made Layla even more angry was that her brother was having fun with the situation, but he saw no point in being sad. She assumed that Damien knew something that she didn't. He decided to rewind time and asked his sister why these two decided to get married, what the two families would gain by marrying their children. First of all, Count Rigman has the right to distribute the iron ore mined in the southern mines. In other words, he has the raw materials for making weapons. Layla had no idea why she needed this information and what weapons had to do with it. With power now divided between Archduke Langston, who was eager to become emperor, and the imperial faction supporting the young emperor, it would be dangerous if the Archduke's side were able to produce weapons. Duchy Ludwig, a member of the emperor's faction's representative, had to put Count Rigman on a leash to keep him from siding with Langston. Layla didn't understand what was good about this. Did her brother really decide to explain why this marriage was necessary by mocking her? This is where the most interesting thing began. Was Count Rigman really on a leash? Damien knew that Erin Rigman's arrogant, villainous image was a complete lie. He understood that it was not easy to believe, but that was how it was. All that was left was to watch how events would develop further. If they revealed this information at the right moment, then Rigman were doomed. The Baron showed another exit to the terrace. Erin was surprised. She examined the estate little by little, but it still took a whole week to go around everything. Just as the girl was thinking about what she should do now, Renan said that the Duchess had asked him to tell her that she had a request for her. Regman Filch didn't understand her joy. He just couldn't imagine how hard it was for Erin to be idle all this time. Thanks to Mr. Filch, the lady now knew her way around the mansion perfectly. She asked the guy. She turned out to be an excellent student. Adjusting his glasses, the guy said that he had been explaining everything to her for a week. It would be a shame if she forgot everything now. Knocking on the door of the Duchess's room, Lizzie answered, asking her to come in quickly. Erin was very excited that she would be working with Lizzie. Since she was just starting out, she asked the little goddess to teach her everything. Her face flushed again, and she said that she should be glad that the lady considered her worthy of carrying out the task. The Duchess noted that the girls got along well, and Erin apologized for not greeting her. The woman laughed, asking Lizzie to help Erin with the paperwork. The Duchess walked from corner to corner. She was obviously waiting for someone, which is what the Countess asked her. It turned out that the lady had recently called the Taylors. The girl remembered that it seemed like there was such an episode in the original. A maid entered the room and reported that the Taylors from the royal workshop had arrived and were waiting in the living room. The Duchess was delighted and asked the girls to finish everything and go with her to the living room. The older the woman got, the more often she chose similar designs each time. Having closed the catalog, the Duchess asked the girls to choose something to their taste. The situation was dangerous for Erin. It was obvious that either the Duchess would like Lizzie's design more, or the outfit she chose would receive more praise. The Countess decided that she had to remain calm. In any case, victory and defeat were already decided. Even if we forget that Lizzie is the main character, she could probably understand the mistress's tastes in 5 years. The little goddess chose a blue silk dress. She believed that it would perfectly highlight the beauty of the Duchess. The dressmaker appreciated the girl's choice. It was the latest design from their workshop, the highest quality silk from which the imperial family's outfits were made. Erin thought, The lady had a light skin tone, so any color would suit her, but blue would especially highlight the lady's eyes. The woman asked if Erin had picked out anything. The girl said that it would be difficult because the dress that Lizzie had picked out was so gorgeous. But if she wanted something new, she could suggest this one. The girl decided that this style would be suitable for those days when she wanted to change her mood a little. The dressmaker noted that Erin has a keen eye, because few people are able to appreciate the combination of these two colors. To the eye of a 21st century person, this design is perfectly suited and worthy of a duchess. The lady thought the dress was beautiful, but wasn't the design too flashy for her? In any case, Erin wasn't thinking about winning this confrontation. She was just accumulating strength so that she could defeat the main character someday. The girl said that her mother had beauty and dignity, so she would match this dress, and with this she embarrassed the duchess. The woman decided to order these two dresses, and now to pick something for Liza. The girl was very surprised by what she heard. She began to dissuade the duchess from this idea, as she believed that anything would suit her, and she had enough of a dress. The lady pretended not to hear the girl's words and began to pick out suitable dresses for her. Erin and the duchess were busy choosing outfits for Lizzie, and the girl tried to explain that she didn't need anything, but no one listened to her. In the end, they decided to settle on 5 dresses. The lady realized that they had chosen dresses for everyone except Erin. She immediately began to correct the situation and said that the girl could choose absolutely anything she liked. But the countess did not need new dresses. She wanted to alter hers. Madame Royal said she would be happy to alter her dresses. Anna brought the dresses, and Erin asked to remove all the jewelry from the dresses and to take in the too large neckline. The countess wondered how much it would cost if she collected all the diamond beads on the dresses. Returning to her room, she found Killian standing next to her. Erin wondered if Killian could possibly show up in front of her room without a reason. Before she had time to ask what happened, the guy demanded that she follow him. As it turned out, Lizzie wanted to invite Erin to tea. Obviously, it was she who sent Killian for his wife. Even from behind, the guy looked great. His shoulders were broad, as if he had been a swimmer in the past. His waist was narrow. For the first time, Erin's heart fluttered at the sight of a man's body. The guy was gorgeous. Killian turned around. The countess blushed, hoping he hadn't noticed her looking at him. In a rough voice, he warned Erin to watch her language in front of Lizzie. She was like family to them and much more important than Erin. The girl lowered her head and said that these words hurt her. Killian asked if anything could hurt her, if she was a human and not a snake. Erin taunted him by calling him very polite, asking if she should treat Lady Lizzie in the manners of a duke's son. She had a feeling that her husband wanted to ruin her mood and make her look like a terrible woman. Unfortunately for him, the girl was not one to be easily angered, however. Hurting her was a different matter. Finally appearing on the terrace, Erin thanked Lady Lizzie for the invitation. Cliff asked if the countess was taking on too much work. She was just married. Shouldn't she be sent on a trip with Killian? Erin laughed and said that her husband was very busy right now, although in her mind, she thought that Cliff wanted to send them on a trip and take care of Lizzie himself. The brother asked Killian if now was not the best time to inspect the lands. Since winter was already over, he agreed, since it made sense. Cliff invited Lizzie to go with him, as she had once mentioned that she would like to go on a trip. Without giving the girl a chance to respond, Killian said that her brother was putting her in an awkward position and asked her to ignore his words. Right now, the 3 of them were like good brothers and sisters, but once Cliff left, it would look like the other 2 were in a relationship, and it would be impossible to avoid bad rumors about Lady Lizzie. Maybe because the guy was the main character, his thinking was different. He asked what Lady Erin thought about it. What does she think about him being the only one leaving this mansion and the situation between her, Killian, and Lizzie? The girl froze in place. This question caught her off guard. It was too impudent even for Cliff. Of course she was not in a position to be loved, but to mock her like that was too much. Everyone in this family had absolutely no manners, Erin thought, as she put down her cup of tea and said that she didn't care about the situation. The girl got out of it by saying that inspecting the lands was the responsibility of the heir to the duchy, so it was the direct responsibility of Mr. Cliff, and what right did she have to tell him whether to go or not? In the end, Erin added that if she was honest about whether Lizzie should go with him or not, she thought it would still be difficult for the girl. Such a long journey by carriage is quite arduous, and Lady Lizzie is not even Cliff's wife, so it is too burdensome to ask her to do such a thing. The little goddess herself intervened in the conversation. She asked the guy if he needed to go for an examination right now. So far, these were just words, but Cliff noticed that his daughter-in-law had a very generous heart. Killian was walking alone in the middle of the terrace late at night, and Lizzie noticed him and asked him what was wrong, that he was walking alone so late. The guy said that everything was fine and changed the subject. He heard that the girl's mother ordered a lot of new dresses. Because of this, Lizzie constantly felt guilty, since she was showered with gifts. Killian began to calm her down, because it was not her fault that her mother was constantly envious of families who had daughters, especially since Lizzie took care of the Duchess, so they should be grateful to her. The Duchess's husband and sons were raised as knights, so she was lonely. Still, Lizzie thought that buying dresses for Aaron would make her happier. The girl told Killian that the Countess had not chosen a single dress, but had asked to alter the ones she had brought with her, and she had also helped them with the Duchess in choosing clothes. The guy couldn't believe his ears. Could this really be the same Aaron Rigman who never wore the same dress twice? Killian suddenly got angry. He misunderstood, thinking that his new wife was disgusted to buy a dress there, but buying a dress for Lizzie and his mother was normal. Didn't this girl like the studio? She wore such a vulgar dress at the wedding, and then suddenly started wearing completely different clothes. For some reason, she didn't really irritate Killian today, but when she showed her insides, everything fell into place. The guy's head was splitting from thoughts about Aaron, Lizzie asked again. He still didn't like the Countess. The guy still considered her a real snake. In his opinion, now she was just lying peacefully on the floor, but when everyone relaxed, she would definitely show her fangs. Anna came to Aaron's room to say that she was running low on perfume and blush, and that it would be a good idea to call a perfumer and cosmetic salesman. The lady thought about it, because cosmetics won't buy themselves, and now she'll have to spend money on it. Aaron's situation in this story was very unstable, so she saved money to be prepared for the situation in which they would appear. The girl had saved and hoarded money all her life, so she had absolutely no idea how to spend money. For her, going to the toilet and applying worn-out lipstick was a luxury. She decided that since she had been reborn, she should now enjoy and try all the delights of life, so she asked Anna to invite a perfumer. After some time, a perfumer came and offered Aaron the scent of Ashley Rose, a style that many young girls prefer. A refreshing grassy scent combined with a hint of Ashley, plus wild strawberry and herbal amber. The perfumer offered to reproduce a scent almost identical to this one if Aaron wanted, and the girl asked how much it would cost. One bottle the same size as hers would cost around 90,000 gold. The girl was beside herself with surprise, because the price for this bottle of perfume was more than twice what she spent on food for a month in her past life. Anna asked what other varieties of roses the perfumer could offer. The most commonly used variety was the Titania rose family. It was rich and long-lasting, so it is the first thing that comes to mind when talking about the scent of a rose, but this scent was too heavy for young girls. The perfumer insisted on Ashley, which Aaron had been using until now, Ortisis or Nathaniel roses. The same volume would cost about 200,000 gold, but the aroma would be luxurious and deeper than that of Ashley's roses, and the girl's head would spin from these amounts. Smiling stupidly, she said that it would be better to keep her scent. After all, it would be a bit strange to suddenly change perfume. Anna suggested mixing a little Nathaniel rose with Ashley. It might be more comfortable to use a more familiar scent, but since Aaron is now married, it would be nice to have a deeper scent. The perfumer thought this idea was excellent, especially since it could be made for about 130,000 gold pieces. Aaron offered the man a discount because she didn't want people to say that she was spending a lot of money right after marriage, and in return, she would contact him next time. The perfumer liked the fact that the Duke had a very thrifty daughter-in-law, so he had to give in. Anna said that she would go and tell about the cosmetics that the Countess bought. Erin couldn't forgive herself for spending such a huge amount of money on cosmetics, but only bought one perfume, blush, and a brush for it. Before, she couldn't buy what she wanted because her hands were shaking, and now she had money, but she couldn't use it, and because of that she felt pathetic. For her from a past life, someone who was robbed by her brother, someone who valued her meager salary, spending money felt like a sin. She decided to give herself time to get used to spending money on luxury. Besides, there are many things to enjoy in this life that money cannot buy. Erin decided to take a walk to the sextet room. It felt like she had rented an art museum. She saw no point in expensive perfume compared to this luxury. In front of the girl was a picture of extraordinary beauty. She could not take her eyes off it. Erin heard footsteps behind her and turned around to see Killian walking towards her. She asked him what he was doing there, and the guy, with a straight face, said that it was strange that he came to look at his family's works of art. Killian again picked a fight by saying that the Rigman weren't very interested in that kind of art, so it must be surprising to her that such a place even existed. Erin downplayed the situation by saying that she was truly shocked at how so much emotion could be contained in one painting. The tragedy and cruelty of war are well shown, and in the man you can see the desire to put an end to the tragedy. However, it is clear that he is not at all happy with the praise of others, because war is not something to be happy about, even if you win. Killian said that this work is dedicated to his grandfather's victory against the Yanok kingdom. The guy assumed, but it seemed like Erin really didn't know the story. Killian had never heard that the Countess was interested in art and did not understand why she came to this room, but she said that as you get older, your tastes change. Erin's husband was curious about her favorite author, which confused her because she had only recently become interested in art and didn't know any authors. At that moment, the guy froze, as if he saw something terribly unpleasant. When Killian was little, he was forced to model for an artist close to his father, but he did not know that his portrait was placed in the Sistine Hall. The guy noticed that Erin was staring at something for a long time. It was starting to irritate him. The girl, after a pause, said that he was somehow too small, turned around and started to leave. Killian started shouting after her that, naturally, he wasn't the model for the body, and that only his face was in the painting. Erin pretended not to hear him, which irritated the guy even more. He began to prove to her that it was obvious. How could a noble son bare his entire body in front of an artist? Realizing that this conversation was useless, Killian said that there was no point in discussing art with Erin, turned around and left. The girl returned to the painting, saying that her husband probably had more now. It had been 2 months since the girl became Erin, and she had adapted to the peaceful life of an aristocrat who had to do a minimum of work much better than she thought. Of course, there were looks that looked at her with hostility, but Anna, whom Erin saw most often, was always polite and treated the Countess with respect. While walking in the garden, the lady met Rian surprisingly. She had not met this guy for a long time. When the Baron asked her what she was doing there, Erin said that she was just taking a walk, and that lately she had been enjoying her morning walks in the garden. Thanks to his tours, she became well-oriented and often visited the Sistine area. Erin decided not to distract Rian any longer. He probably had a lot to do, so she said goodbye to him. The real purpose of the Countess's morning walks was to visit the training ground. Today her husband was in great shape. Looking at him, every time was like the first. The guy was amazing. A man with a wide chest and muscles and a relief back. It irritated her terribly. But Killian really was handsome. There was no point in denying it. She liked Killian more than Cliff. Instead of the typical angular body of the protagonist, she liked Killian's sculpted muscles more. In order not to be late, Erin had to gradually move back, enjoy the beautiful sight, and then leave. In her past life, the girl had never seen a truly handsome man, and because of these thoughts, she could not concentrate on work. Today's agenda included reviewing documents on the family's weapons and armor. This information about the state of the weapons was very important. The fact that such documents were entrusted to Erin, did this mean that she was now trusted? The Countess was distracted by Lizzie entering the room. The girl asked what Erin was doing. She said that she was sorting information from the documents that her mother had given her into tables. Lizzie stared at her, not understanding what tables she was talking about and what they were. The Countess explained that the table was a brief overview of the information in this document, but only then did she realize that such a word did not exist in this world. From a historical perspective, something like a table has existed since ancient times, but the author may well have intentionally created a world of them because documents organized in this form look better visually. Smart Lizzie must have realized the effectiveness of this method, Erin thought. The little goddess suggested that this would not be entirely convenient for other people, at which point the Countess began to think that perhaps she had really rushed into this innovation. The Duchess entered the room, and Erin decided to ask her opinion about keeping tables. The woman stared at the girl with bewilderment. The documents contain a lot of information, so the Countess decided to organize it briefly in the following way, writing only the type of weapon, and in another column only the basic information about each item. The Duchess's eyes sparkled with joy, because Erin had done everything in such a way that one could immediately understand what it was about. The woman asked her how she had come up with that. The Duchess called this method ingenious, and decided from that moment on to try to organize all documents in a similar way. She asked Erin to try recording all the documents she was currently working on so that others could watch her work and learn. The Countess happily agreed. Lizzie stood to the side, detached, and watched as her mother and Erin discussed all the issues regarding the documents. The woman immediately told her son about the document management method that his wife had come up with. Killian thought it certainly looked effective, but in such a compressed form it could easily be carried outside the estate. The mother asked her son to show at least a little sympathy to Aaron, because she, like him, is in a marriage of convenience, and she is even worse off, having left her home and found herself alone, surrounded by strangers. The conversation between the son and his mother was interrupted by Baron Renaud, who entered the room. The boy was confused and said that he could come later. Rena arrived just in time, and the Duchess called him over to show him something. Meanwhile, Killian turned to Lizzie, asking how she was doing with Aaron. It seemed like her mother was pleased with her. The girl confirmed her mother's words, calling the Countess quite smart and well-educated, unlike her, that she did not receive any education in the Sinclair family. Even if Aaron does not know something, she learns much faster than her. As Killian had suspected, something was wrong here. The guy believed that it was not that his wife was smart, but rather that she had been specially trained and coached in such things. Early in the morning, Killian came to Aaron's room. The girl did not expect to see him. She realized that something had happened. Every time she saw this guy, she wanted to make fun of him, even though in her situation it would be useless to fall on her knees, begging him not to kill her. Aaron decided to break the ice with some small talk before Killian started scolding her, so she started talking about the weather outside. Pressing the girl against the wall and pressing too close to her, he asked about his mother's favorite studio. It was so noble and elegant that it did not suit her vulgar style. The Countess did not understand what he was talking about. He explained that Aaron, known for her habit of not wearing the same dress twice, had not bought a single one then. He considered her methods of protest to be rather primitive. Turning sharply to Killian, the Countess shouted that he knew absolutely nothing about her. If she had not liked that studio, she would have found another one. Did she really look like a person who would be stopped by someone else's opinion? Aaron was unstoppable, screaming at Killian that he was just looking for a reason to hate her, trying to convince himself in any way that it was her fault, that it was all her fault. She understood everything from the moment she entered the hall at the wedding ceremony, blaming her for everything. He wants to find peace in this way. The Countess considered this act to be very cowardly, as if he were the only victim. Killian took it as an expression of her feelings after the girl got the job by blackmailing and threatening his family. Aaron asked again, meaning he meant that she personally did it. The guy said that she really wasn't part of the Rigman, but was different from them. Aaron finally realized that to everyone here, she was just Rigman. The Countess repeated again, but in a calm tone, that Killian knew nothing about her at all, absolutely nothing. The only advice he could give her was that she shouldn't do anything, since the guy knew that Aaron was helping his mother. When her husband left, the girl sat down and cried. She no longer wanted to enjoy this luxury, but wanted to escape from here as soon as possible. After leaving Aaron's room, Killian wondered what he should do next. Maybe it was because of the scent of roses that reminded him of the room. His head was foggy, and he had no idea what he was talking about. From the very beginning, he could not see her outside the image of Count Rigman's daughter, but according to all the information he had, there was not a single line about Count Rigman. Killian couldn't understand why he had so many headaches lately. From behind, he heard a voice calling out to him. It was Lizzie, who wished him good morning. The girl came closer to him and asked why he had such an expression on his face. Putting his arm around Lizzie, Killian told her not to worry about it. He had just seen the unhappy girl again this morning. Aaron called Anna and suggested that they go for a walk together. In a past life, when she was feeling down, she would order a large iced Americano and walk around mindlessly. Anna happily agreed, saying that she would warn the Duchess and help Aaron choose an outfit. Because of the confinement within 4 walls, the girl felt more and more depressed. When she went outside, she immediately felt her mood improve. Aaron asked Anna where they could go. To be honest, she had never even walked to the main street alone. The maid came to the conclusion that in this case, their destination would depend on what the mistress liked to do. If she is looking for a nice tailor shop, a jewelry shop, a dessert cafe, and similar establishments, then La Belle Marie Street will be a good choice. Darcis Street is home to cultural venues such as art galleries and opera houses, as well as banks and several specialty shops. One of the capital's most popular pastry shops, Peridot, also located on Darcis Street, has strawberry shortcake and other sweets that are notorious for being difficult to buy, even if you queue up before the shop opens. Finding that Anna was very knowledgeable on the subject, she asked to find her jeweler, as it would be nice to have a good place to shop. The maid recommended 3 shops to choose from. Amabile, which has been around for a long time, the relatively new Datrius, or Ruth Pecan, which is located just off the main street. Erin had long since been unable to believe that Anna was a walking encyclopedia character, explaining all the subtleties of the world for the convenience of the writer. The Countess decided to go to the Rue d'Arcis to sort out some of the decorations she had taken from her clothes last time. After handing over the jewelry, Erin received a fairly large sum of money. She was glad that the jeweler honestly assessed the items. The diamonds were the smallest, but the price for them was the highest. Then the girl decided to go to the bank. She was a little worried because she didn't know what the local bank did. Setting up a bank account turned out to be a lot easier than she thought. Anyway, there was no such thing as an ID in this society, so the bank had no problem using a pseudonym. Having finished all her business, Erin suggested having a snack of something tasty, especially since Anna probably knew a good restaurant. The Countess decided to find out about transport. They said that common people do not have personal carriages, but then what do they travel in when they go on a trip? The maid said that most often they rent a carriage or pay for a ticket in a freight car on a train. To get to the local town, you need to take a train at the station at the southern gate of the capital. In cheap taverns, they ask for 3,000 gold for a room for one night, and in more expensive places already 7,000 gold, depending on the area and local facilities. But if you decide to sleep in a stable, you need to be careful of fleas. Erin decided to dwell on this issue today, because it was unlikely that Anna, the Ludwig family's maid, would not report the fact of her departure and pass on all the information she had on the matter. The maid asked if the lady needed anything else. The girl politely said no. Thanks to her, she finished her business for the day much faster, and her company significantly improved the Countess's mood. Erin had been reading books about one thing or another for a few days, and was currently reading books about farming to see if she could do it. Anna came into the library to report that the Duchess was looking for her mistress, and the jeweler arrived. The girl froze in place. Could it really be that day? Like in the original story, the episode with jewelry, in which Erin was humiliated. A visit from the jeweler from the opalite shop, who visits the Duke's family every season. The episode where Erin first got her comeuppance in the Ludwig household. All the residents of the house, as always, paid attention only to Lizzie, and the girl felt uncomfortable that she was left out. Lizzie had chosen a piece of jewelry that she thought would suit Erin perfectly, but the Countess could not stand being recommended such a plain necklace. Erin mockingly asked how she could be so sure that the jewelry would suit her, insulting Lizzie that she had poor eyesight or was just jaded for focusing on the necklace. The little goddess froze in place. She began to justify herself, but the Countess interrupted her. She liked the rest of the jewelry, such as the special exhibit, but except for the last piece. After that, Cliff bought all the jewelry for his sister with a blank signed check, so the only necklace that Lizzie offered was left for Erin, all of which made up a pleasant episode for the readers. Usually, Erin would sit between them and help with advice, but today was a much stranger day than usual. The girl didn't want to go because she was embarrassed to see Killian. The girl understood why, in the original story, her heroine did exactly that. Finally, the moment came. Lizzie shouted that she had found the necklace that would suit Erin best. Showing it, the Countess was almost overcome with stars from the beauty of the jewelry. The necklace was really very beautiful. The girl asked about the stone, whether it was a ruby. The jeweler confirmed that it was a ruby of the highest quality. The design of the gold chain and the setting of the stone in the frame were also high-quality work of jewelers. The Duchess invited Erin to try on the necklace. Before the Countess could take the decoration, Killian took it and asked his wife to turn her back to him. Erin was very surprised. She didn't understand why the guy had such an expression on his face, and even more so why he was acting like that. At last she understood what was the matter, for the Duchess was there, and he could not make his mother worry. Erin asked Killian flirtatiously how he liked the decoration, and the guy briefly replied that it was quite good. The guy asked the jeweler for the bill for the necklace. Lizzie said that it was the first gift he was giving his wife, and what a wonderful husband he was. Cliff said he would pay for all the rest of the decorations. The Duchess intervened, saying that if her son bought all the jewelry for Lizzie, Erin would have nothing left. The Countess reassured her mother that one piece of jewelry was enough for her, thinking in her head about how much she could get for it. Then she caught herself thinking that even if she were in the most desperate situation, she would not be able to sell this necklace. After every mail came in, Erin would sit down and burn party invitations in the fireplace. Did her character really go to parties that often and spread rumors about Lizzie there? On the remaining 2 letters, she noticed a similar coat of arms. It was the coat of arms of her Rigman family. The girl began to read the letter very carefully. Father wrote that he had given her enough time to get used to the Ludwigs. But how much longer should she wait? Shouldn't Aaron do her part of the work secretly? Count Rigman heard rumors that his daughter was helping the Duchess with documents and had access to the papers of the ducal family. If the documents included papers on weapons and armor, they needed to be stolen, and if that was difficult to accomplish, then the contents could be noted down and sent. Aaron wondered if her father knew she was helping with the paperwork, then there was probably a Rigman spy in the Duke's house. Taking up her pen, she began to write a reply that Ludwig's duchy, which she had visited and seen personally, was unshakable. It was beyond imagination. If someone was going to destroy this stability, then the unfortunate person should be prepared to lose his family. Besides, to be honest, since the very beginning of her stay in the duchy, she has not committed a single bad offense. The noble title is in all aspects the will and power of His Majesty the Emperor. So why do you hate the unique Ludwig family? Aaron decided to finish her answer with such a question. But then she continued, "Now that His Majesty the Emperor is alive with Her Highness the Princess at this time, there is no reason for Archduke Langston to take the throne." The Countess believed that the most desirable option would be to abandon treason and develop the strengths of the Rigman family, under the patronage of the Ludwig family. Finally, the girl said everything she wanted. This is probably what a situation from the frying pan into the fire looks like. Count Rigman may not go so far in giving up his ambitions, but this certainly does not concern his married daughter. However, according to Aaron, the carefully executed work soon took an unexpected turn. In the Duke's office, he asked Aaron again if she had handed over the duchy's documents to a third party. The girl insisted that she was in no way guilty. The Duke asked to swear by part of his father. The Countess, without hesitation, swore by the honor of her father and even by her life and honor. Duke Ludwig concluded that Aaron had just dragged her honor and the honor of her house into the dirt. The girl was angry. She didn't understand what was being discussed. The gentleman asked Renan to provide Aaron with documents. After reading, the girl asked if these weren't the same documents that she had recently been given to look through. Everything was correct, the Duke confirmed. These documents had no value. Renan had prepared them especially for her. Aaron's father sold the items on this list, which is proof that he was using false information. The Countess sat rooted to the spot. She still didn't understand what the problem was. She believes that there must be another reason why she was entrusted with fake documents. In any case, Aaron only did what she was told to do, and did not pass this information on to anyone. The Duke found it amazing that even in such a situation, the girl pretended to be innocent, because information that only she had access to had fallen into the hands of her father. Aaron clarified that Renan had access to the information, as did the servants occupying the same office, and the Duchess and Lady Lizzie also read them. The gentleman asked, "So she blames the people of the Ludwig family for this?" Come to think of it, that was the original. After Aaron's wedding, she was never addressed as Aaron Ludwig. The girl was beside herself with anger. She repeated that the Duchess and Lady Lizzie knew that she was sorting through these documents. The Countess guessed that she would be the first to fall under suspicion if something like this happened. Aaron said that if they trusted her, they wouldn't have entrusted her with fake documents. They would have simply not allowed her to touch them. She concluded that the Duke's family wanted to put pressure on Count Rigman, but to do so, they had to confirm her involvement in the data leak. The Countess could not understand how this document had fallen into the hands of the Count when she had declared that she would not give him anything. She was a little sad that Renan, with whom she thought she had a good relationship, had betrayed her, but honestly, Aaron didn't think he did it, and there was no way Lizzie could have leaked the documents. Most likely, this was done by the spy Rigman in the mansion. In the original novel, the transfer of documents was naturally Aaron's job. As soon as the novel's Aaron started handling the documents, the information was immediately transferred to Count Rigman. The Ludwig family, feeding them false information, fooled the Count without any losses. Aaron, in the original, was exposed and punished for violating her probation and was forever left an outcast in society. This situation still happened, despite the Countess's actions after the episode with the jeweler, and to this day, as if no matter what she does, the fate of the original Aaron awaits her. The girl realized that she would fall deeper and deeper to the bottom until she died at the hands of Killian. Aaron repeated what she had said earlier, that she swears on her life and honor, and if they don't believe her, then let them cut her throat right away. Cliff offered to conduct further investigation, but the suspect would be prohibited from leaving the premises. The Duke agreed, but Aaron would be on probation, and if she was truly innocent, then the Countess had better pray that the truth would come out. Renan was supposed to escort the girl, but Killian grabbed her and began to drag her roughly, saying that he would do everything himself. He started shouting at his wife that she had gone completely crazy, that Duke Axel Ludwig had a nickname on the battlefield, the Head Chopper. Killian was so indignant because Aaron had offered to cut her throat in front of a man who, if necessary, had no qualms about sending his own army, enemy troops, and prisoners to slaughter. The Countess asked her husband again. He was irritated by the fact that she had told him to cut her throat. Aaron confidently stated that if they didn't trust her, then she wasn't going to trust them either anyway. For them, she was a criminal to some extent. After all, it was the Ludwigs who gave her the forged documents, and also reported what actions the Count had taken with these papers, and it was they who were also involved in the investigation and punishment. The Countess sits within four walls and silently accepts any verdict. Killian swore on his honor that he would conduct an honest and independent investigation. He also promised not to let the odds go against Aaron and to keep her updated as the investigation progressed. The Countess agreed, but asked if, in a situation where she and Lizzie were both on the list of suspects, he was sure he would be impartial. The Ludwig family's carriage pulled up to the luxurious palace. Cliff gave Lizzie his hand and helped her down. A short-haired girl came out to greet the little angel. She was clearly glad to see Lizzie. Princess Catherine of Iberia, the only blood relative of the current emperor, being his younger sister, 4 years younger, the most selfish and spoiled princess in history. A wild beast of the imperial palace that puts out its claws before it opens its mouth. It was hard to believe that this wild thing belonged to the imperial family. The only aristocrat in the empire with a short haircut, this walking terror of the entire palace, wears breeches even to official celebrations, arguing that dresses irritate her. Even the emperor came to terms with this statement. Lizzie greeted Her Highness. The princess was indignant. What kind of Your Highness? Why are they not calling her by her name? Coming very close to the little goddess, Catherine said that during her last visit, Lizzie said that she would come in a month, so she came out to meet her, hoping that she had not grown cold towards her. Only in front of Lizzie could she be seen as friendly, even though the girl had won the heart of her former lover. The princess noticed that Killian had not arrived and asked what had happened. Lizzie reminded that the guy was married and he couldn't leave his wife to meet Catherine. Cliff agreed with the little goddess, but in his opinion, this event could hardly be called a marriage. Rather, it was a simple political game with the Rigman family. The princess asked if the purpose of the visit was that they had come to discuss such vile names as Langston and Rigman. Cliff confirmed this, but he thought that this matter could go smoothly due to the fact that Aaron was more stupid than he thought. The guests were informed that His Majesty the Emperor was ready to receive them. Catherine took Lizzie's arm, saying that they were going to go for a walk, and she sent Cliff alone to negotiate with her brother. Before leaving for the palace, noticing that his brother was clearly out of sorts, Cliff invited Killian to go with him to the imperial palace. This proposal made the boy very angry, since the investigation was not yet finished, and his father had already sent a report to the palace. Cliff was about to say that the investigation was still ongoing, but he kept quiet. In his memory, this was the first time Killian had reacted like this to his father's actions. Aaron woke up in a cold sweat, having had another nightmare, and finally realizing that as long as she was alive, she could endure anything. After the Countess changed her mind, life became calmer. The suspended sentence is in fact a punishment, but for her, as a homebody, it was a vacation to enjoy time alone. At least until Killian came to dinner. Aaron asked what business he had with her, unannounced and at lunchtime. The guy was silent, which began to anger the Countess. She thought that he was behaving like an ill-mannered puppy. Did he really think that if he was handsome, then he could do anything? That being the case, Aaron decided to focus on lunch as well. The food was too delicious to be abandoned because of the visit of uninvited guests. Finally, Killian decided to speak up, saying that they were currently thoroughly investigating all the loopholes through which one could gain access to the documents, and that Lizzie had also become a subject of the investigation. After dinner, Aaron went to her room and immediately felt an emptiness in her soul. She didn't know what to do. There were no romances like in her past life here. She had done origami as a hobby before, but that was something she had never done in the romantic fantasy world. Aaron asked Anna what the ladies were doing these days. If we talk about hobbies, then they usually do embroidery and drawing, and active ladies enjoy horse riding. None of the options offered suited the Countess, so she hoped that there was something else besides this. It was fashionable to sew clothes from fabrics and dress up wooden dolls. Parents did not skimp on this hobby, as it was useful for developing sewing skills. This activity interested Aaron, and she asked Anna where she could get such dolls. She said that sometimes they are asked to make parents, but now there are enough shops where artisans carve dolls and sell them. 50,000 gold is enough to buy a pair of quality dolls. Erin gave Anna 200,000 gold pieces to buy good fabric and a sewing kit for doll clothes, and kept the rest of the money for herself as a bonus. The maid said that since her job was to serve her mistress, she had no need for a bonus. The Countess did not understand this. Did Anna really not want to take gifts from her? The maid clearly didn't want to offend her mistress. Erin understood this from the frightened expression on Anna's face. She apologized that she didn't want to scare her so much. The Countess knew from the very beginning that it was Anna who was assigned to look after her. Despite Erin's situation, like Renan, the maid is one of the few in the mansion who treats her well, even if such treatment does not bring any benefits. The lady asked that this amount was clearly not enough to bribe Anna's pride, but she would be glad if the girl considered this gesture as a sign of her gratitude. After taking the money, the maid thanked Erin. The Countess began her new occupation, but she was not doing very well. Once again, she unraveled a seam that she could not make properly. As always, Anna prepared without a hitch. Erin was going to look for her, but she showed up on her own and just in time. The maid brought a whole box with various patterns and threads. The dolls were purchased as a ready-made set of a man and a woman. Anna ordered patterns from a tailor. To begin with, she asked for several options. But if Erin wants a specific design, then this can be ordered without any problem. The Countess came to the conclusion that this was a hobby, and she didn't have to do everything perfectly. Anyway, people do it to kill time and money for entertainment and relaxation. If you think about it, in her past life, the girl never even thought that she would enjoy a vacation without thoughts in her head, since she was always haunted by thoughts about the time spent and the justification of the money spent. Maybe that's why it seemed to her that she was living her life only now, when she had captured someone else's body in a completely new world. Erin finished the costume and dress for her dolls, and while she had time, she decided she could try some embroidery. Killian burst into the Countess's room. The guy was furious and shouting that they had found a document written in her handwriting. At the Sinclair mansion, over breakfast, Layla asked her brother what Erin had done that had her banned from leaving immediately after the wedding. Demian said that the Countess stole the documents. She was probably in a hurry, since Count Regman plans to attack the duchy within a year. Erin had been a bargaining chip from the start. Despite the fact that she could have been put on probation in the duchy, she tried to get useful information as quickly as possible. Layla was shocked that the Count had received the Duke's secret documents, but her brother mockingly said that the documents were fake and no one had entrusted her with the original. In this situation, the Count did not receive information, but only fell into a well-prepared trap. Damian was bothered by the way Killian cared for Erin in a way that was unusual for him. Layla suggested a plan to her brother that they should tell the Duke that Erin was a bargaining chip. This would be a perfect opportunity to rob him. Damian did not agree with his sister. He believed that the Countess could handle it herself, and there was no need to worry about it. But on the other hand, Lizzie was questionable because of Killian's wedding. The likelihood of Lizzie and Cliff getting married increased. These words made Layla furious. She could not allow this slut to take this place. That's why Lizzie was considered a problem, because if the situation in which she had a tight grip on Cliff worsened, then Layla's prenuptial agreement with him would be nullified. The girl became nervous and began to think through different options in her head, eventually suggesting that Demian use Erin Rigman. The plan was that if Lizzie was also enamored with Killian, then Erin would hate her, and if they pushed the Countess, then she would take care of the girl herself. Thus, it was possible to kill two birds with one stone. Killian shouted that Erin would soon be summoned to the Duke because of a document written in her handwriting. The guy was interested in what she would say in that case, but the girl did not lose her composure, saying that she would tell that they were diligently trying to set her up. The guy didn't understand whether she was making fun of him now or whether she really despised the Duke so much. In the original novel, Erin actually did this, but the Duke refused to take the claim. In this case, the girl had a lot of things to do, so she couldn't just disappear like that. Killian was confused. He didn't understand what was going on in his wife's head. Their conversation was interrupted by Renan. The Baron came to tell Erin that the Duke was waiting for her. With a smile on her face, the girl headed to the gentleman's office, telling Killian not to worry so much, but to be glad that all the evidence had been found. The Duke gave the Countess a list of the goods ordered, which the arms dealer had received from Count Rigman. The list was written in her hand. Erin said out loud that her handwriting had been copied. Duke Ludwig decided that it was her father's mistake, so he had no intention of punishing the girl. Erin was outraged by this, and repeated to the master that it was not a matter of punishment, but of her honor. She provided 2 documents with tables for comparison, showing that she does not draw them so crudely. It is more like the scribbles of someone who has no idea what tables are. The Duke assumed that Aaron had drawn it that way on purpose. The Countess denied this, saying that it was unnecessary. If she had expected to be discovered, she would not have written in her own handwriting in the first place. Aaron tried to convince everyone that if you looked closely, the handwriting was slightly different, and she asked if she could bring her diary for comparison. The girl proved that the handwritings were slightly different. A clear difference was visible when writing one of the letters. To sum it up, Aaron said that his lordship needed to catch the mole, the Duke thought. This was more like the truth. Lizzie entered the Duke's office. The three could not understand what she was doing there. The gentleman said that he had called her. The Duke began the conversation by saying that it had been 4 years since Lizzie had started helping the Duchess with her work, and the last time she had said that Aaron had taught them how to organize information using tables. Lizzie confirmed everything, adding that the Duchess was glad to learn of the existence of such a method. The Duke was interested in whether anyone else knew about this method. The girl said that it was worth asking the lady if she had trained the assistants in this method. The young masters, Cliff and Killian, had a general idea. Except for them, probably no one else. The Duke came to the conclusion that, at best, only Aaron and his family members could use this method. Lizzie asked why she was being asked such questions. The gentleman made it clear that it was none of her business. He had heard everything he wanted, and now it was time for her to leave. After Lizzie's words, the Duke became more confident that it was Aaron who gave the documents to the Count. Even though the girl showed all the evidence, tables that were different from hers, and handwriting that didn't match, Lizzie's words were still trusted more. The Countess didn't remember exactly how the little goddess had proven her guilt in the original novel, but she believed that the kind and fair Lizzie would provide more compelling evidence. Aaron thought about it. She didn't forge the documents, so Lizzie couldn't have written evidence. The Countess remembered that she had left her diary behind, and when she came to her senses, it was already in Killian's hands, who was reading it with great interest. She pounced on him. She couldn't believe that he had read someone else's diary. Taking the notebook from him, she asked him if he really had no desire to be polite to her. The Duke interrupted her monologue, saying that they had no solid evidence of her guilt, so he would turn a blind eye to the case and also revoke the previously issued probation. Aaron headed to her room, Killian running after her, screaming that he couldn't believe her words, but the girl knew that it was, and would be so. Remembering everything the Rigman did, it was natural to blame the Countess for everything. The girl had already started shouting, repeating that if she had said several times that she had nothing to do with it, then was it really that hard to remember? Killian asked what about helping her father plot before all this. At that very moment, Aaron's mind flashed with images of not only seducing men to extract information, but also ruining a party for a family that favored the Ludwigs. More than once, the Countess ruined the weddings of the children of this family. She wondered why these memories were coming back right now. After leading Aaron to her room, Killian met Lizzie in the hallway. The girl was interested in what kind of commotion was going on in the palace. The guy told her that his wife was suspected of stealing documents. The little goddess couldn't believe it, and began to justify Aaron that she didn't do it. Killian said he didn't want to believe it either, but they had mixed evidence. The Countess decided there was no point in eavesdropping, and it was clear what the guy thought about her. Lizzie began to worry that her words might hurt Aaron, and she was going to give his lordship a full explanation. Killian said that there was no need to do this, since his father had decided to forget about this matter, and there was no need for it now. The guy remembered the entries from Aaron's diary, where she wrote about him, how she hid on the path near the training ground and spied on him. His face was shining, and his beautiful body was haunting her. But that wasn't all. She saw Killian wave his hand at Lizzie as she walked in and smile. He never smiled at her. The young master was completely confused. He no longer understood what the point was in mocking Aaron. Walking quickly into the library, Killian called Cliff to come and practice on the parade ground right away. The guy was surprised, looking at his brother. He asked why he was so gloomy. Was his headache still not over? But Killian was not going to answer his questions and demanded to go to the parade ground. The next morning, Aaron came to the Duchess's room, and the woman received her kindly, saying that she was aware of the difficulties that had befallen her yesterday. The girl came to say that she really did not steal the documents, knowing that the Duchess would not believe her, and her doubts could grow more and more. The lady interrupted Aaron, taking her hands. She said that she believed her. The Duchess knew that the Countess was trying her best to help her. She saw how she was trying to get used to her new surroundings. The woman understood her like no one else, and it turned out that she had also gone through this in her time. Although she didn't know who played this cruel joke, She was sure that it wasn't Aaron who did it. The Countess began to cry. Her mother began to console her. The girl was about to make some kind of confession when her eyes went blurry and she began to fall. A servant came running to the parade ground to inform Cliff and Killian that Aaron had fainted. Killian was confused, asking for details. The guy said that the Countess talked with her mother and then suddenly fainted. Quickly throwing on his shirt, he rushed quickly to the palace. The doctor who arrived reported that most likely the lady was changing clothes and fell. She asked if Lady Erin had ever been in stressful situations. Killian froze, his eyes fixed on the Countess, thinking about how yesterday she had held herself so confidently in front of her father during the interrogation. And today, she lay unconscious with a tear-stained face. The arrogant Erin Rigman, never one to miss a chance to be sarcastic, brought herself to the point of fainting with tears. Killian asked his mother what they were talking about. The woman said that they would hardly believe her, but the girl claimed that she was not involved in the story with the documents. The boy said that Aaron had always said this, but his mother, putting her hand on her son's shoulder, said that she believed her. That is why the girl started crying. No one had believed her before, and it was especially painful for her. Killian remembered her words, how he told her that he couldn't believe her words, and Aaron shouted that this was how it was, and would be. Seeing that her son was clutching his head, the woman began to call for help from a doctor, but the guy reassured her that everything was fine. He just had a headache. He got up to go and rest when he ran into Lizzie. She came as soon as she heard that Aaron had fainted. The little goddess asked Killian why he was so pale. Lizzie began to reach out her hand to touch the guy's face, when he intercepted it and said that he was okay. He headed to his room to lie down. The little goddess clearly didn't expect such a reaction from him. The girl woke up. Everything around was black. It seemed to her that she had died again. In front of her, she saw a text that said that Erin Rigman could not talk about her secrets until she fulfilled a special condition of the 3rd stage. The girl didn't understand what they were talking about. She woke up abruptly in her room, never knowing what the condition was about. Anna immediately rushed to her with questions about her health. The maid said that the Countess had slept for 2 days, and this information even made Aaron cough and asked Anna to bring her some water. She wanted to know if Killian had come, but decided it was better not to. When the girl first woke up in Aaron's body, she thought she had become the heroine of a romantic fantasy as a villain. If she had behaved politely and gently, she would not only have avoided a deadly fate, but would have also resolved the problems and become a good friend to the main character. Once this empty hope was dashed, she decided to live a quiet life, thinking she would be content in the role of a daughter-in-law of a rich family, living quietly, having abandoned her husband. Regardless of Erin's will, the original episodes continued relentlessly. No matter how she changed the course of events, everything turned out the same as in the original. It was as if there was an unknown force that was arranging the course of events in a certain way. From the very beginning, the girl was simply mistaken. She could not change the course of history. Erin Rigman is a negative heroine of a romantic fantasy. Her role is insignificant, and the novel does not reveal any personal secrets. A minor character who is destined to die a brutal death at the hands of her own husband, who slits her throat. Erin sat and wondered what the next episode would be. The Countess, feeling threatened by the leaked documents, sneaked into Killian's bedroom that night. She wanted to kiss him while he was sleeping, in an attempt to seduce him. Erin walked into Killian's room. His peacefully sleeping figure was beautiful as an angel. This was the man she fell in love with. The girl leaned over him to kiss him. In any case, she thought she had nothing left to lose. She knew that now he would wake up with eyes full of contempt. When he woke up, he grabbed Erin's hand and told her that she was so excited that she couldn't even act. Having thrown her onto the bed, he gave her a chance to try to seduce him, believing that maybe she had a good body. Erin stopped him and asked if he was sure he wanted to do this to her. Killian thought, because she is not Lizzie, compared to what he feels for Lizzie, this girl means nothing to him. Even though it was a marriage of convenience, the Countess did not expect anything from him as from her husband. Pulling Erin closer to him, Killian told her that she shouldn't ask such questions after the confidence with which she walked in here. Without giving her a chance to say a word, he kissed her. By placing Erin's hand on his body, Killian gave her the chance to touch what she had been dreaming about. Running his fingers over his body, he asked if she was happy. Killian moved his lips to her neck, thinking that even Erin Rigman could blush. He began to slowly move his hand up her leg, moving higher and higher. All she could say was scream his name. When Erin woke up in Killian's bed that morning, she thought they had definitely slept together. The boy ordered the maid that as soon as she finished heating the water, she could leave. Today he wanted to be alone. Returning to his wife, he asked how she was feeling. He picked her up, Erin trying to resist, claiming that she could walk. Killian put her in the bath and told her that if the water was too hot, she should feel free to speak up. It reminded him of how she lay in the bathtub on their wedding night. The gentleman realized that Erin probably enjoyed lounging in the water. The girl confirmed this. She felt awkward, not understanding what had come over Killian, because even if last night had happened only because of his anger towards her, she thought that he would regret what had happened in the morning. The innocence of his first kiss, which should have belonged to Lizzie, had been taken away by the fleeting temptation of the previous night. The girl remembered that in the original, the attempt to seduce Killian did not work. She wondered if he had done it out of pity, or because Lizzie had clearly swayed in Cliff's favor. The guy apologized for making Erin move so much. Although she had only recently recovered, he said that she should rest for a few days. Erin would never have thought that she would hear his voice full of tenderness, considering how coldly he treated her since the wedding. She still did not know what changed his attitude towards her. In front of the Countess was Killian, who hugged her and called her by name. The girl decided to collect her thoughts and think everything over, especially since after that very night, she had a dream that she had fulfilled a special condition. Once a special condition has been met, it means that the author's rights have been reduced. She had a lot of questions, but Erin knew that no one would answer them. Suddenly she heard some kind of ringing. This system definitely knew that the girl was in a romance. The special condition of the first stage was that she follow the example of the original Erin. She was trapped, trying not to do the bad things the original Erin did, but the system demanded otherwise. There were some strange things in the dream. Since Erin had fulfilled the special condition of the stage, it was mentioned that the author's rights were reduced. Everything was too vague. There was not enough information for a full understanding. The most important thing Erin learned that night was that it was possible to change the plot of the original novel. She realized that it was not time to give up yet. She needed to see what choice Killian would make in the next episode. Erin entered the Duchess's office, and the woman rushed to her, asking if she was feeling well. The Countess reassured her mother that everything was fine with her, that she had recovered long ago. Ludwig's husband had recently visited the Imperial Palace, most likely traveling to deal with the growing threat from Archduke Lanston and Count Rigman, a matter Erin knew better than to ask about. The Duchess said that the Duke was also worried about his daughter-in-law. He regretted that he had put so much pressure on her during their conversation. His manner of speech was somewhat harsh, since he had spent a lot of time on the battlefield. Mother asked what Erin wanted to do in the future. If that was what she wanted, she could stop helping her with the paperwork. If she were guilty of what happened, they would whisper about her from all sides and point fingers at her as a daughter-in-law who had lost the trust of the entire family and now could not touch even a piece of paper from the duchy. Erin expressed a desire to continue helping with the affairs of the duchy if the Duchess did not object. But the man who had set her up last time might do it again. So the Countess asked to work under someone her mother trusted. In fact, the Duchess had already thought about this, and it turned out that Rena Filch needed assistance. The girl froze in place. Renan was the person who worked with the papers and was not a member of the Ludwig family. It was he who prepared those very fake documents. Like Anna, he was one of the few who treated the Countess with impartiality, unless, of course, he was disappointed in her. Entering the Baron's office, Erin found his face as expressionless as possible. The Countess said that from today on she would help him. Her first task was to sort a box of receipts by year. Taking one of the receipts, Erin asked what happened to them. It was the former assistant's fault. He said he was offended by Renan, then threw the receipts on the floor and ran away. Renan Filch warned the lady not to think that he would be lenient towards her. She would regret choosing to work with him. The office was fairly quiet and calm. From time to time, the silence was interrupted by the scratching of a pen, the rustling of sheets of paper as they were turned over. Weak midday rays of the sun were filtering through the window, and everything in this place exuded tranquility. Erin didn't have time to notice how the working day ended. Renan came to say that they were wrapping up for today. The girl hurried to note up to what point she had managed to sort the papers. She thanked the Baron for the opportunity he gave her. Renan praised her, saying that she had done a great job, and the girl admitted that she did not want leniency from him. In her past life, her boss, who emphasized team friendliness and only interacted with a certain group of people, was terrible. Erin told Renan that she only wanted two things from him, honesty and competence, and she thought the guy was famous for those two qualities. During dinner, Cliff called the Baron over to ask him a few questions. Everyone in the palace already knew that from today on he was watching Erin. Cliff was interested in what he thought of her. Several thoughts flashed through Killian's mind at once. Why, despite all this, Erin wanted to help her father again, and even asked for this job herself, and why her brother was interested in her at all. Renan said he was told that Miss Erin wanted to help with the paperwork, so he was assigned to do it to oversee her work. Cliff was interested in other information, whether the Baron noticed anything suspicious, but the guy could not answer his question, since he spent only a quarter of the day with Erin. His office did not meet the standards of such an aristocratic lady. Despite this, the lady worked diligently, without expressing dissatisfaction with the environment. He could tell that the lady was meticulous in her work. According to Renan, Erin had excellent concentration, understanding, and judgment, and was also very persistent. This information was of no use to Cliff, so he warned his father's assistant that he would call him again soon. Lizzie was extremely surprised, as it was the first time she had heard Renan give such compliments to anyone. She considered her magnificent, because she had won the Baron's heart in a day. Cliff thought that Lizzie wanted to say that her father's assistant had fallen in love with Erin. He was a bachelor after all, so anything was possible. He even thought that such an outcome would not be bad for them. Noticing his brother, or rather his pale appearance, the gentleman asked him if he was really that worried. Killian laughed it off, saying that it was impossible. The guy walked back and forth in his room, unable to find a place for himself. His brother's words about Erin and Renan were in his head. Erin's beauty was different from Lizzie's charm. You could tell she was a sensual girl, and if they were left alone for a few hours in a cramped office, something happened. Killian walked up to Erin's room, knocking on the door. He didn't hear an answer and opened it. The guy smelled the scent of roses. There was no one in the room, as it seemed to him. On the counter he saw two figures, very similar to him and Erin. The Countess appeared out of nowhere and immediately threw off these figures, starting to justify herself by saying that it was just a hobby and that she was a little embarrassed to show it to strangers. Then she turned her attention to Killian and began to accuse him of entering the room without knocking. They sat opposite each other and were silent. No one knew how to start a dialogue. Killian broke the silence first, asking how she was doing, but he himself replied that she was probably fine. The girl became embarrassed, saying that it was all thanks to her mother. It was she who sent her to work under Renan's leadership. Killian revealed that the Filch family are vassals of their house. Viscount Theo Filch had assisted the Duke in his affairs from the very beginning, but from the moment the Duke entrusted the estate to him, his duties in the capital were taken over by Baron Renan Filch, his son. It turned out that the boys grew up together, but while Killian and Cliff were interested in sword fights, Renan preferred to disappear alone with a book. Erin still couldn't understand why her husband decided to come and talk about this. He could tell from her face that she was wondering about his visit. Killian said that he would soon be heading to Raisin territory to check on the estate's affairs. These lands were located far north of the capital, several days' journey by carriage. The estate and its surrounding territory were to go to Killian, as the second son who did not inherit the title of Duke. Because of the trip, the guy will be absent for a long time, so he came to Erin to offer to go with him. She froze in surprise and asked him again if he wanted her to go with him. Erin laughed, telling Killian that he must have invited her along for the sake of propriety, wishing him a safe journey. As he left her room, he began to reproach himself for his stupid act. His thoughts were interrupted by the news that the Duke was waiting for him in the courtyard. Erin let out a sigh, finally finished with work for the day. The Countess felt Renan's gaze on her and asked him why he was looking at her like that. Nervously adjusting his glasses, he said that it was nothing like that, and immediately changed the subject by saying that the Duchess had invited Erin to her place. When the Countess left the office, Renan approached her desk, opened the documents, and was surprised that she had already managed to organize the papers so carefully. Mother informed them that the Countess of Araminia's bazaar would be held next month, and that there would be a gathering for embroidery at their home on that occasion, and the Duchess invited Erin and Lizzie to join them. Charity fundraisers are held to raise money, and upper-class ladies usually offer their embroidery. Such an event is a great opportunity to demonstrate honed skills and excellent taste. The meeting before the bazaar is attended by ladies of the upper class of all generations and ages. Considering the high position of the House of Ludwig among all the imperial families, it is Duchess Jocelyn who arranges the meeting before the charity bazaar. Lizzie began to justify herself by saying that her embroidery skills were not so good. She was not sure that her embroidery could compare with the embroidery of others. The Duchess began to reassure her that there was no reason to worry about such trifles. Erin knew that embroidery and she were not compatible. Anna tried to teach her, but nothing came of it, so she decided to come up with an excuse. Before Erin could say a word, Lizzie said that she wouldn't be nervous if she went there with the Countess, an idea that the Duchess immediately supported. The lady had no choice, so she agreed. Lizzie showed off a muslin shawl she had recently finished, and Erin couldn't understand why the girl was so nervous when she could create such beauty. The ladies admired the beauty of Lizzie's shawl, and how well she handled the loom. The little goddess turned her attention to Erin, asking what she was going to do. The Countess was going to decorate a handkerchief, which was the only thing she could do with her sewing skills. Erin decided to sew a handkerchief for Killian. The Duchess came to her after choosing the colors. Her mother was delighted with the idea. Stepping aside, Mother smiled. It seemed as if her daughter-in-law was in the clouds. Finally, Killian and his father arrived at their destination. Their lands were a bit far from the capital. The Duke believed that it was rare to find such lands with potential for development, especially since 10 days was not that much, and if on horseback, then less than a week. The territory looked much better than the guy imagined. When the lands became his, they would leave the possession of the Duke, so he was worried about their well-being. The castle was in good condition thanks to the many years of efforts of the caretaker and servants. The interior decoration was somewhat severe and lacked elements of luxury. So, upon returning to the capital, Killian was going to find a good furniture maker. He thought about Erin. She was from the Rigman family, who were drowning in wealth and chic. The guy doubted that the austere decoration would suit her taste. Heavy snow has been a major problem in this area, but no avalanches have been recorded yet. Killian was pleased with the territory. Since there were many young people in the territory, it was worth aiming at expanding other areas besides agriculture. The boy proposed to build a direct route through the Filiac Mountains, so that the entire territory would become one of the key points for traders traveling throughout the empire. Father asked Killian if he was really happy with just that. The son did not understand his father's question and asked what else he needed to ask for, more land or a higher title. Killian began to get angry. Did his father really think that he would ask to take the title of heir from his brother and give it to him? He asked the Duke why there was such a question now. Killian always followed his father's wishes, even going so far as to enter into a marriage of convenience, giving up his freedom. Finally, he exhaled and told his father that he was happy with everything. The girls went out into the city. Lizzie showed Erin a shop where they could offer goods for sale. The scale of the bazaar amazed them. One could see a huge variety of different goods. Suddenly, Lizzie noticed that her and Erin's products were displayed on the counter. It looks like someone managed to buy the embroidery of the little goddess. There was a bow on the item. The girl was very happy. She asked Erin her opinion about today's competition. The Countess knew that the main male character was only looking for an opportunity to buy up all of Liza's products. Erin had an idea to help Cliff buy up all of the girls' masterpieces. She suggested that she look at the pieces on the other side. The girls heard some ladies discussing modern social mores. They spoke without embarrassment about Lizzie, about how this illegitimate daughter was hanging around the market. Erin realized that gossip existed the same here as in her past life. There are some individuals who, without a twinge of conscience, criticize out loud, hoping that they will not be heard. Lizzie grabbed Erin's hand tightly. The girl was very depressed. The Countess stood up for the girl, loudly saying that she could not get used to the behavior of society these days. Some tactless redneck is about to start a verbal altercation in the marketplace, Erin continued. Turning towards the gossips, the girl added that she couldn't remember her face. It was immediately obvious that she came from a remote village. One of the girls stood up for her mother, saying that if Erin Rigman didn't recognize Bryn at first glance, it showed how little she knew about society. The Countess stopped this by reminding them that she had changed her last name after the wedding, and the way they had decided to gossip behind others' backs showed that they needed to tighten up their simple rules of etiquette. This infuriated Countess Bryn. She had heard rumors that the Duke had an unpleasant daughter-in-law, but she did not think it would be to this extent. Erin suggested waiting for Mr. Cliff and then seeing what was left of the Bryn family. The girls began to leave, saying that they were very sorry for young Master Killian. Lizzie apologized to Erin. It turned out that she was a friend of Countess Sinclair, and because of her, they said nasty things about Erin. The Countess reassured the girl. She had nothing to be embarrassed about. While everyone was praising Lizzie for her embroidery talent, Erin sat on the bench and didn't know what to do with herself. The Countess heard the little goddess call out the name of her husband, who had just arrived. Erin wondered what the right thing to do was to say hello, or pretend she didn't notice him. As she approached Killian, she almost let it slip that she missed him, but stopped in time and asked how he got there. The guy kept staring at her. Erin asked why he was looking like that. Finally, Killian replied that the trip had gone well, asking how she had been doing while he was gone. The Countess said that all this time she was trying to embroider something adequate with her zero skills in this matter. Out of boredom, she drank too much cold tea, so she excused herself and went to powder her nose. Entering her room, Erin heard strange footsteps. The girl was suddenly grabbed by the arm. She did not know this person and did not understand who it could be. The uninvited guest was indignant. How could Erin ask who he was? Had she really forgotten the voice of her own brother? The girl realized that it was Shane Rigman in front of her. Shane thought his sister was crazy when she wrote a letter, asking them to stop harassing the family, but then sent documents that turned out to be fake. The brother needed to know that when they slipped Erin the fake documents, she sent those letters on purpose because she was being followed or something else. The Countess did not lose her composure, explaining to her brother that some misunderstanding had occurred and that the letter had not been written to distract attention. As for the documents, she said that she did not send them, but she needed to find out who sent them. Killian sat and waited for his wife. She was very late, although she said that she would return soon. Not having waited, the guy decided to return back to the palace. When he returned, he found Erin with his brother, but since he was standing too far away, he could not hear what they were talking about. Shane disappeared. Killian approached the Countess and asked why she had been gone for so long, but as expected, the girl did not tell the truth. Erin asked if her husband had come looking for her specifically. Her heart was glad to receive such attention, that there was a person who cared about her. Killian and Erin heard the announcement that the market was over and that all the items had been bought. The lady was happy that if everything had been bought, then someone had bought her handkerchief too. But the question was, who had done it? She was afraid that her embroidery would remain until the end of the market, but it's good that this did not happen. It turned out that when Mother told Killian about the history of the creation of this scarf, he immediately bought it. But he could not admit it even to himself. So he found a reason that he bought it because he did not want an unnecessary thing to remain at the Ludwig market. Erin heard some noise in the yard. She wanted to get angry when she said that the letter was sincere, but she knew that it was not the end. The Countess saw her brother, and this made her angry, because he came without warning and not alone. Shane apologized for causing a stir, but as he said, after Erin left the Rigman house, his father's worries did not diminish, and Sophia, Erin's former maid, was almost going crazy with worry about her mistress. Brother heard that even within the duchy, Erin was being watched, and she could not attend her friend's tea party. The Countess began to resist, saying that this was all not true. Shane, in turn, never stopped playing on pity. Killian entered the conversation, saying that in that case, let Sophia stay, she would become his wife's personal servant. Erin was very outraged by this. She even shouted at her husband. The young master believed that the maid had been with her since childhood, and therefore the Count would worry less about her. The Countess began to resist this idea, but Sophia jumped up to her, hugged her, and did not let her say a word. The maid said that when she heard Master Shane's story about Erin, she doubted its truth at first, but now she realized that it was all true. The girl thought, the episodes that will happen in the future will begin because of Sophia's actions, the investigation because of the information leak, and also the poisoning attempt. The maid grabbed Erin by the throat, trying to remind the stupid bitch who her master was, since she had forgotten who she served, suddenly finding herself free. Having fallen to the floor, the Countess immediately began to think about whether everything was okay with her ribs. Sophia hit the places that outsiders cannot see. The maid did not expect that Erin would decide to betray her family. The girl did not understand where everyone was so confident that the supporters of Archduke Langston would win. His Majesty the Emperor held his power firmly, and the Ludwig family, loyal to him, proved in battles that they were not inferior to their emperor in military strength. The maid assured that the Ludwig family would fall sooner or later. She spoke with such confidence as if she had already overthrown them. Erin suggested that they imagine that the Langston family had actually taken the throne of the emperor, and then asked Sophia if she had heard that the henchmen who helped in such dirty ways were the first to be disposed of. This made the maid very angry. She decided that the Countess had completely lost her fear since she was making fun of her masters. Sophia warned Erin that she could continue to play the silly little doll that her master demanded, but if she became useless to the family, she would kill her and blame the Ludwig family for her death. The Countess understood that the working day was coming to an end. She really didn't want to return to the maid. As soon as Sophia stepped on the threshold of the estate, she took away those grains of freedom that Erin had. She not only beat her, but also forced her to starve, taking away her food. When the Countess tried to be sarcastic, the maid grabbed her by the hair and began to beat her. Even in her past life, the girl was not treated like this. She didn't think that she could withstand such an attitude towards herself. Erin had dealt with this since she was a child, and when she thought about her, never trying to fight back against the beatings, it made her not give in. Renan noticed that the Countess liked the cookies today. It turned out that she ate the whole plate and didn't even notice it. The Baron suggested asking the servants to bring a second plate of cookies, but the girl refused. In her room, she regretted that she had refused a second helping. How could she have known that Renan was going away on a business trip for a week? Erin had gotten used to eating in her bedroom since she was put on probation. Usually, Anna would bring food from the kitchen to her room, so no one suspected Sophia when she started doing the same. Besides, it had been a long time since Killian had come over for breakfast together. Erin seemed to be getting a bit confused by hunger, so she decided to go for a walk before Sophia ate her dinner. The maid had personally trained Erin for several years, and she did not understand how the girl could change in such a short period of time. Even after the slap, the Countess did not jump back in fear. It seemed that Sophia had lost control over her, and even after the beating, she looked straight into her eyes and was insolent. The maid decided to try something new to teach Erin a lesson. In the corridor, Sophia heard someone's familiar voice calling the Countess. It was Lizzie Sinclair, and she invited Erin, if she wasn't too busy, to come and have tea with them. Before arriving at the Duke's estate, Shane asked Sophia for a special favor. He asked her to collect information about Lizzie Sinclair, how she was doing in the estate, and what things she liked, whether there was anything unusual in the estate, and to write all the collected information in a letter. Sophia could never even dream of becoming Shane's wife. It was always enough for her to be there. Now that she was nearby, she saw that the guy was openly interested in this illegitimate girl. The maid could not stand aside while the girl, with her innocent appearance, seduced her master. Erin was starting to feel dizzy from hunger. No matter what she ate with Lizzie, Sophia would probably make her purge her stomach. There was no point in trying the pie knowing where it would end up later, and Killian was giving her a pitiful look. The maid brought Erin a peach pie, which Lizzie passed on, and it looked like she would have to give in once, so that people wouldn't start to suspect that the mistress was starving. The Countess didn't care what Sophia had in mind, as long as she could eat at least a piece of something. After eating one small piece, Erin fell to the floor, blood pouring from her mouth and coughing non-stop. With a joyful face, Sophia shouted for her mistress to hold on. The maid went straight to Lizzie, accusing her of poisoning the pie. The girl tried to defend herself from this accusation, but the maid did not let her say a word. Everything was like in the original novel. Liza's pie was poisoned in order to frame the girl later. Killian came into Erin's room. The Countess tried to tell him something, but Sophia shut her up, repeating that she couldn't talk now and just needed to rest. Gathering her strength, the Countess nevertheless shut the maid's mouth, apologizing to Lizzie for Sophia's behavior, explaining that she simply had a stomachache. The maid started screaming that this was all nonsense because the mistress was coughing up blood. But Erin didn't lose her composure, citing the fact that she seemed to have developed an allergy to peaches. Cliff found the situation not funny at all and ordered a search of the entire room. Erin didn't think they'd find evidence in this room. Sophia had probably gotten rid of everything by now. In the shelf, Anna found some suspicious vessel, which she immediately told the gentleman about. The maid didn't even try to hide the vessel. The bottle had a too garish sticker with a skull on it. Erin immediately said that it wasn't her bottle. Cliff, of course, didn't believe her, but said that he would sort it out later. Taking the bottle with him, the guy left. He was waiting very much to deal with the new stream of excuses. Sophia was furious. She did not expect that the young master would guess to search the room. Erin mocked her. The girl pretended to be the smartest, but in reality she didn't even think to hide the evidence. The maid threatened that if the Countess said anything else, she would kill her. In any case, nothing would help her get out of this situation. The doctor informed Cliff that the vial did not contain a strong poison, but in a weakened person, it would cause pain or even bleeding. After his brother left, Killian asked the doctor for some medicine to help ease Erin's severe pain. The doctor had already prescribed painkillers, but she didn't think it would help Killian's wife. The guy didn't understand what she was talking about because the girl had received a strong dose of poison. The woman explained that since Erin had been starving for several days, even a weak poison could cause death. There are often women who are willing to starve themselves to lose weight, and Killian couldn't believe that his wife was one of them. The young master couldn't wrap his head around the fact that, knowing about her weakened body, Erin decided to poison herself. Killian came to the conclusion that she was definitely up to something, but was that really the case? Before their marriage, the Countess had a reputation as a woman who attracted male attention, and such images are forgotten by society in the blink of an eye. If we follow this line of reasoning, then the whole situation with the poison happened not to frame Lizzie, but to attract attention to himself. Killian found it hard to believe that all he could do was sit and watch her suffer. The young gentleman asked why she decided to take poison. It turned out that at that moment Erin was conscious and heard everything. She quietly whispered that she thought so, that he would think that she did it on purpose. Seeing that she had woken up, Killian rushed to her, but the girl asked him to leave. It seemed that the Countess had long since stopped hoping for his good attitude towards him, but even now his words hurt. In the end, only Lizzie stood up for her, telling everyone that she believed there was another reason for the poisoning. Cliff tried to convince the little goddess that she herself had seen the bottle of poison in Erin's room, and that the bottle and the pie contained the same poison. Lizzie asked a logical question. If the Countess really tried to set her up, then why, when she woke up, did she only complain of feeling slightly unwell? The girl sincerely did not understand why everyone thought that Erin wanted to harm her, because everyone knew that she was the same age as her. No one had any idea how eagerly Lizzie had been awaiting her arrival, and she was still confident that they could become good friends. Erin asked her mother what things Lizzie liked. She wanted to give her a gift. The Duchess thought this idea was wonderful. The Countess decided to express her gratitude to the girl with a gift decorated with magnificent white paper and a silk bow. Finally, her body fully recovered from the illness, and she could start working. The girl was very happy about this. Killian burst into the room screaming what Erin Ludwig had done. The young gentleman asked if she was going to deny everything again, or what, but the girl didn't even understand what was being discussed, and demanded that she explain everything first. It turned out that Lizzie had passed out just as she was embroidering with the threads Erin had given her. The girl was poisoned. The Countess could not believe it. The threads were packaged by the seller, after which Erin immediately gave them to Lizzie, during which time no one could touch them. In the original novel, an attempt to poison the little goddess was supposed to happen at this time. Sophia put poison on the tip of an embroidery needle that was part of the gift. Erin thought she could change the events by changing the contents of the gift. Killian grabbed the Countess by the arm and demanded to know what she had done. The girl asked to suspect her at least for a moment and think soberly. Could she have acted so stupidly after that situation with the pie? The young gentleman said that the problem was not that he did not want to believe her, but that this was not the first time this had happened. Erin tried to explain to him that she didn't want to be suspected of everything, especially since the guy even assigned her a maid to watch her. Sophia heard this conversation and began to shout what the lady meant. The lady said that since she was not guilty, it was not so important, but she definitely needed a better maid. Killian seemed to understand her request and agreed, saying that he would call Anna right away. The young master immediately ordered that Anna become Erin's servant again. The guy returned to his wife's room. He solved her problem. Now he demanded reciprocity from her, so that she would tell him what happened to Lizzie. The Countess asked about the conversation with the merchant, but the man had already been interrogated, especially since he was famous enough to expose himself like that. As for access to Lizzie's room, only a limited number of people could go in there: the maids, the girl herself, Cliff, he and their mother. Erin's words sounded like an excuse, but someone was clearly trying to make her a scapegoat. She was sure that they were trying to hurt Lizzie with impunity. If the girl gets seriously hurt, Erin will be punished for it, so someone will kill two birds with one stone. Killian didn't understand what she meant by this, so he demanded to know. For example, Count Sinclair, there were rumors that the half-brother and sister had tried to harm Lizzie more than once. The young master heard of such things for the first time, but he could not deny such a possibility. In fact, among the numerous servants in this estate, at least one spy of Earl Sinclair could be found, but it was impossible to detect him. Erin also suggested that it could have been the Ludwigs, in order to discredit the Rigman family. This version made Killian furious. He started screaming at how a girl could say such mean things. He began to claim that his family would never do such a thing, but in her defense, Erin said that he himself suspected her. Even though she was close to death, the master still did not believe her. This time, Killian accepted the Countess's guess, but he didn't think his father and brother would believe it. Erin understood all this, and, to be honest, she didn't even want to be found innocent, except for Lizzie. Until now, the little goddess who had seen all the injustices caused by the Rigman family's past had stood up for her. Lizzie would be very disappointed if it turned out that the Countess's gift was a tool in an attempt to poison her. Killian assumed that Erin hated Lizzie because everyone praised her, unlike the Countess. Approaching the young master closer, the girl said that she, Erin Ludwig, would become envious of another girl because of some praise. After what she said, she immediately became embarrassed. She didn't think she would ever say something like that. Killian pulled Erin closer by her hair and kissed her. After the kiss, the guy suddenly pulled away and, leaving the room, apologized for his actions. Erin was left sitting there, bewildered by her husband's strangeness. A few days later, Anna came to the mistress's room to say that the probation period was over. Since the poison was too rare, it was difficult to establish its origin, so due to insufficient evidence, the charge was dropped. It was all very strange. Erin thought that Lizzie would believe her, but since the poison was too dangerous, the girl never came to her senses. Since things have gone too far, Cliff clearly won't be able to turn a blind eye to it. When Catherine learned that his probationary period was over, she was furious. She believed that no matter how crazy Langston was, this was unacceptable. Cliff himself was surprised. If such a thing could be expected from his father, then from Killian, this act was more than strange. What angered the princess even more was that since then no one had even tried to contact Lizzie. Everyone thought that everything had gone well. Considering this unacceptable, the girl decided to put her own hand in this. What was surprising was that even the Duchess, whom the girl trusted so much, did not say anything about it. If the Emperor had not banned her from leaving the palace, Catherine would have been ready to go to Lizzie right away. Killian believed that in any case, nothing could be changed, because too many people could penetrate the chambers of the little goddess. The younger brother understood that Cliff had become an idiot when it came to Lizzie, and didn't even notice that the poison was too strong. It was unlikely that Erin would have been able to use the poison without being seen. Were the guards at Ludwig's estate really that incompetent? Father agreed that Killian's theory was valid. At this point, the father decided to close the topic. In any case, after the incident with the pie, the maids' things were regularly inspected, and it would be difficult to prove where they could have gotten the poison. It was decided to keep the details secret until the investigation progressed further. Cliff smiled wickedly and asked Catherine how she felt about his father soon visiting the palace. The girl could not understand how this could happen at all. In the original novel, not only would she not have ridden in the same carriage with the Duke, she would not have set foot in the palace. A few hours earlier, in the Duchess's office, a woman asked the Countess how she was feeling. Erin looked much better. It was all thanks to Anna. As soon as the girl became her servant again, everything seemed to fall into place. Renan was interested in Erin's well-being, so the mother asked if the girl was ready to help him again. The Countess happily agreed. The Countess could help the Baron from today, but before that, Princess Catherine wanted to meet her at her palace. Erin was confused. Although her mother explained that the Emperor and Princess had been friends with their family for a long time, they were very warm to Lizzie, and now they decided to get to know her too. The Countess did not know what the real reason was, but she was sure that it was definitely not her. Princess Catherine is known for not only not observing palace etiquette, but also general etiquette, and she always does as she pleases. She was known for her tomboyish nature, short hair, and refusal to wear dresses. It was even said that the princess often rode wild horses and only became soft and sweet next to Lizzie. In the palace, she was the only living soul unrestricted by rules. The girl really liked her when she read the novel. Erin thought she was really cool with a sassy personality, and she hoped she could get Catherine to side with her. When the princess first met Lizzie, she was accompanied by Cliff, her first love. Catherine felt intense jealousy towards Lizzie, who had captured his heart. But in the end, she too was charmed by Lizzie's kindness, and began to care for her even more than for Cliff. Arriving at the palace, Erin stood in front of the princess and couldn't even open her mouth until she spoke to her first. Finally, Catherine asked if it was right that Rigmund's youngest daughter was standing in front of her, and the Countess replied that her name was Erin Ludwig. The princess noticed that her guest had not even brought tea, but then she smiled that it was even better that way, because no one would poison her. After this phrase, the Countess realized that Cliff had told her everything. Erin began to defend herself, that she had never used poison. Yes, her behavior was not the best. She could not say anything except that the rumors that the princess heard were only the result of misunderstanding. Catherine realized that her guest knew everything, and therefore should have known that Count Rigmund's request for this marriage was also a misunderstanding, since this marriage would only cause Killian suffering. Looking down, Erin admitted that it was her father's decision, and she was truly sorry that things had turned out this way. Now, many people wanted the death of Catherine and her brother, so they valued loyalty above all else. Was the Countess trying to gain her trust in this way? The princess asked. Aaron said that it was completely wrong and that she actually really liked Princess Catherine. Towards the end of the novel, when Langston's coup had already been suppressed, there were several episodes where Lizzie and Catherine spent time together on Rue Marie Street. The princess put on a wig to hide her identity and went shopping with Lizzie, which was the first time she wore a dress in the novel. Then with Lizzie's help, she had her own tea party. Over the course of the novel, she grew significantly as a character, becoming not only a leader, but also learning to communicate with people. Aaron thought that Catherine was simply following her own path, despite what others said. She liked that she was a princess who wanted to protect her own freedom. Aaron said she did not wish to bring up again the words she had heard from the nobles, admitting that she trusted Her Highness's wise judgment, but wished Aaron would be understood. The Countess realized that she had screwed up again, tried to stop thinking about it, and just work calmly in her office. As she was heading to the office, she was suddenly grabbed by the arm. It was Sophia. The maid said that she was giving Aaron one last chance. She had to steal documents from the Duke's office, but if she betrayed them again, Sophia would kill her with her own hands. Sophia could not understand why the Countess did not die. Could it be that her stupidity had been transmitted to this illegitimate daughter and all the inhabitants of the house through the air? The maid held Aaron by the throat, so that she did not even touch the ground with her feet. The Rigman's henchman was sure that after the Countess poisoned Lizzie's threads, everyone finally came to their senses. But she turned even this incident to her advantage. As the lady had assumed, Lisa's poisoning was not the work of Sophia. Finally releasing Aaron's throat, Sophia warned that this was her last chance. The Countess asked what would happen if she was caught, but the maid said that in that case she would finish her off so that everyone would think that it was the work of the Ludwigs. Aaron threatened to expose all of Sophia's crimes, but she only laughed in response. The maid believed that the Countess was still silent only because if she told, everyone would immediately turn away from her. Once everyone finds out that Aaron was the Count's spy, Killian will be the first to throw her out of here. The lady didn't even think about it. Rather, she didn't tell everything because she was hindered by the limitations of the original novel. If the Countess stole the papers, Sophia promised to put in a good word for her with her father. She believed that even an idiot like Aaron could handle this task. The Countess decided to try making a prediction, telling the maid that no matter what she did, the Rigman family would still come to an end. He also mentioned his brother, whom Sophia loved so much. Aaron knocked on Renan's office door, apologizing and asking if she was too late. This time it took her longer to change than usual. Ren and Filch said that it was okay. Aaron could start working at this time. But there was quite a lot of work to do. But there was no need to rush. It was better to work at your own pace. The Countess was delighted. She had worried for nothing. The girl hadn't felt so comfortable for a long time. The familiar smell of papers, cool air, the sound of a writing pen, and just silence. Even though no one was looking over Aaron's shoulder or trying to find fault with her work, she had to anticipate what others expected of her. Renan's office was the safest place the girl had ever been. Having presented the papers she had already completed, the Baron said that he had been thinking about how skillfully and focused Aaron was working. The girl became embarrassed, and Renan added that if everyone worked so enthusiastically, he would not have to fire so many people. Aaron helped him a lot. Even if the task was simple, the documents were written so neatly, right down to the smallest detail, he didn't even have anything to complain about. Upon hearing this, tears involuntarily flowed from the Countess's eyes. She felt very ashamed of her emotions and immediately began to wipe the tears from her eyes. Renan took her hand and said that she shouldn't control her emotions as if they would punish her. Taking a handkerchief out of his pocket, he began to wipe away Aaron's tears, adding that if the girl hid them like this, then one day they would burst out. Killian, standing behind the door, watched all this. After finishing work, Aaron walked down the hallway and wondered if her husband had gone to visit Lizzie today. Killian heard that Aaron had finished her work, but decided not to show herself to anyone. Why would that be? The girl looked at him with wide eyes, not understanding what he was talking about. Sitting down on her bed, he asked if their last meeting had disappointed her. Aaron was in complete shock. How did this even happen? Killian was too close to her, and she plucked up her courage and asked if he meant that she was supposed to come to his room after work. He asked if that was not what she usually did, pretending to be innocent, but nevertheless trying to seduce him. Aaron understood that if you looked at it from Killian's point of view, then basically that's how it was happening. A slutty girl who tries to use seduction to distract attention from her lies. The young gentleman admitted that the Countess had almost succeeded. He had behaved like a fool. Aaron asked Killian if he had had too much to drink. She pointed out something important, that she had not committed any crimes. She had no intention of seducing him that day. He had simply misunderstood, to put it bluntly. It sounded too absurd for the young master. Erin was wearing such a vulgar dress. How could it be misunderstood? Killian believed that even if that was the case, she had tried to seduce him, but the result had not pleased her, so the Countess had moved on to another prey. These words made Erin furious. She screamed, "What is he even talking about? Where could she find the second prey?" The girl was always the subject of discussion among the young aristocrats. Despite the fact that he did not want to hear rumors about her, they always reached his ears about how his wife loved to seduce men. Killian couldn't even count how many men had fallen victim to Erin, because seducing someone was not difficult for her. In his opinion, all she had to do was beckon with her hand, and they would all run to her feet. Killian Ludwig knew absolutely nothing about Erin. This girl was not nearly as stupid as the young master thought her to be, but she was also not as cunning as the men thought her to be. Unexpectedly, the Countess turned out to be a connoisseur of art, and it was easy to please her with food prepared by the Duke's chefs. In tense moments, Erin became calm and cool, finding an appropriate response to any rudeness without losing her temper. No matter how hopeless the situation was, the girl always looked for a rational way out of the situation, and in the end, she was even able to influence her father by giving reasonable arguments, which no one expected. Killian thought, if he remembered everything and put it together, it all came together. What was strange to him was that as soon as something happened, they immediately put all the blame on Erin. This smart and proud girl pretended that she was not in pain, although everything was completely different. The Countess never showed her weakness in front of Killian and never even asked for help. Because Erin never talked about her difficulties, the young master thought that she liked Rena more. Killian found himself very easily agreeing with his inner voice, which told him that Erin was bad. Rena was simply behaving like a decent gentleman, and the Countess was taking advantage of this like a cunning fox. Apparently, she was going to seduce the Baron, decided to take advantage of men's weakness for women's tears, and thus Erin came out as the bad one, the only bad person here. But this thought no longer swirled in the guy's head. It was now impossible to hide the fact that Killian Ludwig didn't know Erin at all. Such wounds could not have been received by accident. Judging by the color of the bruises, they were received not a day or two ago. Until now, none of the servants had reported this. Killian asked who did it, but the girl remained silent. Their servants would not remain silent about such a thing, so the answer became obvious to him. Noticing Erin's depressed state, Anna asked if she had slept poorly, but the Countess assured her that she slept too well here. Last night, Killian apologized to her for losing his temper. To be honest, it wasn't that Erin didn't like it. She didn't mind continuing. After all, a wife's duties had to be fulfilled. The young gentleman said that he was not the kind of animal to hug a man whose entire back was covered in bruises. After that, Killian left and Erin went to bed. In the morning, she felt something sticky on her back. It was ointment. The only ones who knew that the Countess had bruises on her back were Killian and Sophia, which means Killian came at night and smeared ointment on her back. Erin couldn't believe it because she was sleeping too soundly. Early in the morning, there was a knock on the Countess's door. It was Killian. He apologized for visiting so early, but the matter was urgent. Sophia was thrown in front of Erin. The girl was tied up and screaming that she did not understand what she was accused of. She was sent by the Count to keep an eye on the lady. Killian found this justification simply ridiculous. He said that a servant who could not perform her duties should not be near Erin. Sophia screamed that she had been with her mistress since childhood, and that she had been trained specifically to become her servant. Killian was adamant. He asked what kind of servant she was. Not only did she know about her mistress's bruises, but she didn't report them, but she also didn't help to cure them. The guy said directly that when he thought about who could have inflicted these wounds, only she came to mind. Sophia began to justify why she did not report such minor abrasions to her mistress. Killian immediately interrupted her, offering to give her a couple of minor bruises. The young master reminded her that he and Erin were married, but knowing this, the maid hoped that the clothes would hide these wounds, and thus decided to cover up the marks. Even thinking about it was ridiculous. It turned out that the Count demanded that his maid be returned in good condition. Killian warned his wife that he did not need her permission to kick Sophia out. Erin was now on Anna, and the young master promised to see to it that this precious servant was sent back in their carriage. Anna asked the lady if she would allow her body to be examined. For the Countess this was not a problem, so she immediately agreed. Taking off her dress and seeing Erin's back, the maid couldn't contain her emotions and asked why the girl hadn't told anyone about this yet. Anna looked down and began to reproach herself for not noticing anything. The girl received a notice that if the conditions of the second stage were not met by that day, she would be punished. It all turned out too weird. She never worried about not being able to fulfill the stage conditions. If you think about it, it was all too weird from the start. Most errands would be glad to be reborn with a silver spoon in their mouth, and then from start to finish, they act more or less the same. At first, they try not to follow the path of the villain, and to be kind, however. As soon as they move into the Duke's house, they fall in love with either Cliff or Killian. They try to win the love of characters who don't even want to look at them, try to go with the flow of the original plot, until they realize that they can't change anything after the document leak incident. They begin to panic and lose their composure, instead of clearly and calmly proving their innocence. That wasn't all. She also took control of the minor characters that the black-hooded stranger couldn't control. It was as if she knew that characters who were rarely mentioned in the original were not so strongly subject to its laws. It was not as if Erin was being deliberately nice to characters who might be of benefit to her. As soon as the stranger began to think that he had won, the girl immediately changed tactics in order to fulfill the conditions of the first stage. No matter how many conditions were met, the influence of the original novel ceased to be so strong. In the first stage, only secondary characters could influence the events. But why did Killian do it? The stranger was angry that everything was getting out of his control. Having collected his thoughts, he began to reassure himself that everything was even for the best. All this would help to highlight the main character even more. All he had to do was try. Choosing the 13th Erin on the screen, he gave her a chance, thus setting the requirements for the second stage. Cliff was angry that his brother let Sophia just leave without finding out anything, and she could have been behind Lizzie's poisoning. Killian believed that if they had investigated without solid evidence, they would have been accused of illegally detaining the Rigman's maid. The young master thought they were lucky to get rid of the maid they didn't like. Finally, Lizzie entered the conversation, saying that she did not want to return to this topic anymore. Even if the Sinclairs or someone else were behind all this, it only remained that someone really disliked the girl. She didn't want to know who it was, because she knew it would hurt her. Killian was glad that Lizzie supported his words. If it had been known that Erin was not Count Rigman's favorite daughter, then this marriage between families with strained relations would have been in jeopardy, which is why the girl remained silent. Killian stood there lost in his own thoughts when his brother interrupted him, asking if he was ignoring Lizzie's illness because he was thinking about Erin. The little goddess laughed. On the contrary, she was happy, since she was not sure that she could cope with such a lot of attention to herself. Lizzie wanted to ask Killian to take care of Erin while she recovered, but she kept thinking about how hard it had been for her after the poisoning. The girl knew that her brother was visiting her, and the Countess was enduring her suffering alone. That's why she wanted Killian to comfort Erin, who was still having such a hard time. Lizzie suggested that they drink tea together, take a walk, talk, be as kind to the Countess as he was to her. The lady sat in her room and thought that her husband must have noticed the situation she was in, and had she really received sympathy from the main male character. In fact, she knew that the probability of being thrown out the door was not so high. After all, she, as a character, was more important than Sophia. And according to the laws of the original, she could not be thrown out like that, since the girl had to go through many more key moments. She was more concerned that there were events involving Sophia that had not happened. Erin knew she had to be even more vigilant now. Killian might have warmed to her situation, but he couldn't be trusted completely, so she still had to prove she wasn't a threat. Now the young gentleman saw the Countess as a woman who was trying to seduce him so that he would help her get out of a bad situation. She decided that she would definitely make him think about her differently. The next day, Killian invited Erin to have tea together, and she happily accepted. The Countess thanked her for the invitation. The guy thought about it. It must have been a surprise for her. A day later, Killian invited her to dinner with him, but Erin laughed it off, saying that she thought the Duke was a bit uncomfortable with her around, so she didn't want to ruin the family dinner. Ever since Lizzie was poisoned, her father had really felt uncomfortable around her, and Erin probably felt the same way. Another day later, the young gentleman invited the girl to take a walk in the park, since the weather was beautiful outside. The Countess politely declined, saying that the sun was too hot and she would prefer to stay inside. Having received another refusal, Killian could not understand whether his wife was uncomfortable with him, but where he made a mistake. He didn't do this just because of Lizzie's request. The young master still thought that Erin was a real snake, but maybe not as bad as everyone described her. Just when Killian thought he had figured out all of her motives, the truth about the complicated situation came to light. That's why the guy thought, because it would be best to get to know her by being alone, but he didn't think it would be so difficult to do. He decided to try again, telling Erin that they had strawberry tarts from Peridot Bakery, inviting them to try them together. The girl's mouth started watering after she imagined these tarts that she was so eager to try. Once again, Erin refused, citing the fact that she had recently gained a little weight. The girl decided that no matter how much Killian tested her, she would not give in. She would be a grateful, obedient, and sweet wife, as long as he did not disturb her peace. 3 days after all the invitations from the young master, Lizzie asked Erin if she was perhaps disappointed in the guy. The Countess immediately began to deny this, saying that her husband had never disappointed her for a moment. On the contrary, she was even grateful to him, because he took care of her in his own way. Then Lizzie's question came straight to the point. Why, in that case, was Erin pushing Killian away? The Countess wanted her words to be understood correctly. She felt sorry for her husband. For the sake of the duchy, he had to give up his desires. Marriages of convenience were common when it was a marriage with a girl from a family he hated. Erin didn't want Killian spending time with her just out of obligation. That's all she could tell Lizzie. The little goddess began to claim that this was not true, but the Countess did not think so. Every day the young gentleman came to her with different proposals, and Vera came to Renan's office and watched her work. This time, the guy was more persistent. He found out that Erin had no business after work, so he invited her to the opera. The Countess admitted that she didn't need it. Let him go with Lizzie, she seemed to be feeling better. Killian's patience got out of control. He started yelling at the girl for what she thought of him. The Countess was confused by this question. All she could answer was that he was her husband. The girl thought if this was part of the test, then she shouldn't have said that. They were only in a marriage of convenience, where their union existed only in documents. It was a debt that suddenly fell on Killian as a member of the ducal family. The young gentleman was put in chains, which shattered his last hopes of marrying his beloved. Killian flared up, saying that if she didn't want to spend time with him, then she wanted to spend time with someone else. The guy assumed it was Renan. Erin didn't understand what the Baron had to do with it. It no longer looked like the young master was pretending. The Countess reached out her hand to his face, but Killian pulled it away, saying that if he was only a husband on paper, then he just needed to play the role of a docile stallion. Erin began to deny it, but the guy no longer listened to her, only apologizing for his lack of understanding. Instead of simply walking away, he pulled the girl towards him and kissed her passionately. The thought flashed through the Countess's mind that Killian had misunderstood her, but all she could utter were loud sighs. The conditions of the second stage were met. Due to the emergence of exceptional events, the influence of the author was reduced. The girl understood how everything happened. Her luck in this world did not increase. The condition of the second stage was to refuse Killian 10 times. As she thought, whoever was behind all this was just playing with her. He knew how she felt about the young master and took advantage of it. If the girl had not come to her senses in time, she would not have fulfilled this condition. Thanks to this, she was even closer to becoming the goddess of peace. The stranger was furious. He did not understand how the girl managed so quickly, how she was able to get an invitation from the person she liked 10 times. Previously, no one could fulfill the conditions of the second stage. Now even the main characters have fallen under the influence of the unknown. He didn't know what he would do if the girl fulfilled the conditions of the third stage. Then he would completely lose the author's power. The influence of the original would fall. The plot of the novel will develop under the influence of the character's desires, and even when the original story comes to an end, time will not stop there. Sweet Lizzie will grow older and eventually die. The unknown person tried to establish the conditions of the third stage, but everything was unacceptable. Erin kept touching Killian's muscles, which amused him, but she found very interesting in touching them. The guy pulled her closer, saying that her body was much more interesting. The Countess did not understand how he learned to leave such gentle touches. Killian decided to clarify Erin's words about her not wanting him to be just a stallion. Was it true? She confirmed, but it was very strange why he was asking about it, as if it mattered to him what she thought about him. It was definitely not pity. The guy would not have gone that far for her. Of course, knowing the power of the original novel, it was clearly not love. The only thing Erin had left was carnal desires or loneliness. The girl was well acquainted with Killian's story. No matter how hard he tried, he could never surpass his brother. After all, Cliff was the main male character who had everything, the heir to the title. All the attention of his parents and their expectations were placed on him. Even his beloved girlfriend saw only his older brother. Erin asked her husband what she needed to do to make him start believing her. The Countess and Killian came to the theater. The girl was amazed by the huge hall, the hanging chandeliers, but her companion did not understand her surprise because she had already been to the theater. She admitted that this was the first time. The young gentleman did not understand how it was possible that the girl had never been to the largest opera house in the capital. Erin knew about opera, but art, music, and even books were beyond her reach. It's all because of the father, who was afraid that his daughter would know more than she needed to. The title of the tragedy was Odelette. The story begins with Odelette, the daughter of a ruined viscount, going into the forest to pick raspberries. In the forest, she discovers a wounded Laszlo. A compassionate girl helps him. The guy lost his memory and decides to stay with Odeletta until his wounds heal. However, in reality, he is a prince from a neighboring country who fled from civil war. Soon the two fall in love with each other. But the Viscount, after much deliberation, for the sake of the family's well-being, forces his daughter to marry Hubert, a rich baron living next door. Laszlo persuades Odelette to run away together for the sake of their love, but Baron Hubert, knowing that the girl loves another, decides to seduce her with his wealth. Erin spent almost the entire opera in tears. The opera seemed very interesting to her. If she had known that the opera was so incredible, she would not have refused to attend it. Killian asked his companion who she would choose if she were in Odelette's place. Erin would have chosen Hubert and not committed suicide. According to the girl, Laszlo was a very bad person. He knew what situation his beloved was in, but hid his identity. Killian believed that if Odeletta loved Laszlo, she would not have fallen for the Baron's money. Erin decided to drop the subject, as they were clearly starting to argue, but she liked the opera anyway. Killian invited his wife to take a walk around the city if she wasn't tired yet. Walking around the city, the girl felt a little awkward. She thought that the young gentleman probably often walked like this with other girls. Erin's attention was drawn to a little girl selling flowers. The Countess approached her to find out how much all her flowers would cost. The girl could not believe that they wanted to buy all the flowers, so she asked several times. Killian intervened in the conversation, holding out a stack of bills, asking if it was enough. The young master did not like the fact that Erin was going to buy flowers for herself, as she would be the first aristocrat in the empire to buy flowers for herself when her husband was around. The girl admitted that she had never been given flowers before, but Killian turned the tables, saying that she had probably never been given such a limp bouquet before. For Erin, this bouquet was perfect. The girl's parents were not the kind of people who spent money on useless bouquets, and her ex-boyfriend was nothing to write home about. She was sure that the real Erin had no end of people sending her bouquets, but the flowers never reached the Countess herself. The girl didn't think that it would touch her so much. After all, these were the first flowers in her past and present life. Changing the subject, she suggested that Killian look at what else they sold here. On the street of the city, a clown who was entertaining the crowd approached Erin. He pulled her into his arms. The girl began to scream. She was afraid of clowns. Killian immediately approached, extended his hand to the Countess, and asked her to let his wife go. Erin couldn't believe he called her his wife in public. In fact, all of this was created only for one girl, the main character. These beautiful streets, squares, sights, all of this was invented only for the main characters of the novel. Now, as Erin enjoyed a walk through these places with Killian, she wondered if this could all be because she had fulfilled the conditions of the second stage. She wanted to know if the young master's attitude towards her had changed due to the conditions of the second stage being fulfilled, whether she and he would be freed from the restrictions of the original romance if she fulfilled the conditions of the third stage. Erin dreamed that they would simply love each other, sometimes be sad, sometimes be happy, and in the end, just find their happiness. No matter how much Killian thought about it, he still couldn't understand it. Because the girl was interested in art, he almost suggested that she go to the opera, but he was afraid that she would be bored, thinking that she had gone to the theater with other men countless times. He couldn't even imagine that Erin would cry like a baby after watching Odelette. I certainly couldn't imagine that Erin Rigman had never received a bouquet of flowers as a gift in her life. Killian seemed glad that it was her first time, but it looked like the guy was going crazy. The guy's thoughts were interrupted by Lizzie, who suddenly appeared. She wanted to tell him that she had overheard someone seeing Erin, in particular, put poison on embroidery threads. It was one of the maids. She suddenly packed her things and left the mansion. Cliff was looking for her all day. Killian wondered why this was happening now, why she hadn't told him before, and how Cliff had found out about it in the first place. But Lizzie didn't have the answers to those questions. Cliff said he would figure it out himself, but the little goddess decided that his brother should know about it. Lizzie wanted to find support in Killian's eyes, that he also didn't believe that Erin did it. The guy heard some strange voice, as if in his head, which kept saying that this was the work of this insidious woman. Killian began to reassure Lizzie that whoever it was, there was no need to worry, that it was Aaron. There was no reason for her to do something like that. If you think about it logically, even if Count Rigmon ordered Aaron to commit the murder, there was no point in him killing Lizzie, who had no power, instead of any other member of the Ludwig family. Although the girl had smaller reasons to envy Lizzie, Killian did not think that his wife was jealous of the little goddess. On the contrary, instead of fighting for his attention, she distanced herself from his proposals. Killian thought that the real culprit could easily be traced to someone in their family, which meant that it would be worth questioning the other maids working in the estate, but Lizzie didn't want it to escalate into something serious. The young master assured the girl that she had nothing to worry about, but next time, if Cliff wanted to do something behind his back, she would have to tell him too. 3 days after visiting the opera, Killian had lunch with Aaron every day without exception. She did not understand what he needed from her now. If during the date, he found all the answers to the questions that interested him, the Countess reminded her husband that he had said that he had a lot of work today, to which he replied that she was late. He had already returned from work, and in the end, he called her his wife. Since the guy didn't understand the hints, she decided to ask him directly why he suddenly started behaving like that. Killian didn't understand the question. He thought that they were married, and there was nothing wrong with them having dinner and lunch together. He decided to admit, even though it was too late to say it, but the guy made a lot of mistakes, and from that moment on, he wanted to really get to know Aaron. The girl was still the main suspect in all the incidents that had occurred, but Killian was beginning to think more and more often that it wasn't her who did it. The man who was so reluctant to touch Aaron that he put an engagement ring on himself, and now wants to really get to know her to get rid of his prejudices. He also changed his mind to the point that he was able to tell her about it himself. Killian admitted that he hoped most of all that she wasn't the one who committed all the wrongdoings. The young gentleman expressed a desire to spend as much time as possible with his wife, to find out what she likes and dislikes, to learn her nice habits. He didn't want to miss anything. Aaron couldn't help but understand Killian's logic. She thought that this would all be very awkward, but not only was she much more comfortable than she thought, but everything also happened very naturally. It was as if a wall had collapsed between them. While drinking tea together, the couple became so engrossed in each other that they didn't notice anyone paying attention to them until Lizzie exclaimed how good they looked together. In the girl's opinion, they really did look like a married couple. Aaron noticed that these words did not embarrass Killian in the least, which could not be said about her. Today, Lizzie brewed strawberry tea, hoping that the Countess would appreciate it. Even the aroma of this tea was very pleasant for Aaron. Killian continued to flirt even here, saying that judging by the strawberry cake, she liked strawberries. The strawberry itself was sour for her. The girl preferred the sweet varieties of this berry. The young gentleman noticed that her perfume smelled like a rose, not a strawberry, but Aaron believed that one should wear the smell of flowers, not food. Cliff intervened in the conversation, noting that his brother and his wife had been getting along better lately, adding that Lizzie had been wanting to tell him if he was trying too hard. For the Countess, this was all a bit strange, because in the original novel, Cliff didn't let anyone near Lizzie, but here something incomprehensible was happening. The little goddess changed the subject by saying that a letter had recently arrived from the boutique saying that her new shoes were ready. Lizzie remembered how Killian once offered to go there with her, starting to justify himself by saying that he didn't want to buy something expensive, but the guy insisted. At this moment, the young gentleman discovered that Aaron seemed not to be listening, but was in her own thoughts, and he began to call her. The Countess began to apologize that she was simply lost in thought and did not hear what her interlocutors were telling her. Lizzie watched as Killian showed concern for Aaron, worried that it was too cold today and that she might get sick. She began to regret what she had said, and hoped that no one had heard it, adding at the end that she was just going there with Cliff. The Countess realized that while she was lost in her thoughts, she had clearly missed some information. Killian reassured the girl, saying that he would have some free time, especially since there were a lot of shops on La Belle Marie Street, and he and Aaron would have a good time there. Cliff didn't think it was a good idea because he, his father, and the Countess were supposed to visit the Imperial Palace, so it was unlikely that Aaron would be able to go shopping. That was also strange. Instead of stopping Killian and Lizzie's date, the brother did the opposite to keep them alone. Lizzie and Killian did indeed pick out shoes for her together, but that episode was supposed to happen before Cliff had established himself as her primary romantic interest, so if he was jealous, he would have done everything he could to prevent Lizzie from taking those shoes. Aaron and her husband noticed a strange picture with their father talking to Damien Sinclair. Killian sent the girl to the palace and went to the uninvited guest. At dinner, the young gentleman said that they were saying that Count Sinclair wanted to take away the iron mining rights in the south. The problem was that the iron mining rights in the south belonged to Count Rigman, which was the main reason for the marriage between Aaron Rigman and Killian Ludwig. The young gentleman apologized to his wife, but he had to leave earlier today to talk to his father. Coming closer to Aaron, the guy said that they were not bad. He really liked the perfume she wore. Darcy Street, where the Countess went in the morning on business. This morning, Anna asked her the most difficult question. Did she love Mr. Killian? The maid asked this question because she learned that the gentleman had gone with Lizzie to the Rue La Belle Marie, a street which, although there were many shops on it, was most famous as a place for trysts. Anna was the Duke's employee who was always calm no matter what happened, but now she began to put Aaron's well-being above Killian's opinion. The Countess thanked him for his concern, but she was fine, thinking that if every day was as wonderful as this one, she would have nothing to regret. Aaron sold 3 of her dresses and most of her jewelry this morning, not wanting to wear dresses that would ruin the ducal family's reputation. Count Rigman carefully selected dresses for his daughter, in which she would be the center of attention. Such rich and elegant dresses suited the girl perfectly. An emerald necklace, diamond earrings. Aaron pulled out her jewelry box that was part of the dowry and sold almost all the jewelry that was more expensive than the rest. The Countess needed money so that she could escape from this unstable situation at any moment. No matter how kindly she was treated here, no matter how warm she felt here, she could not rely on all this. Aaron, like no one else, knew that in both her past and this life, she could only rely on herself. Anna worked as a maid for the Ludwig family for over 10 years. She had all the qualities that a maid in a noble family's house should have. The maid did not eavesdrop on conversations or spy on what family members were doing. Anna worked quietly and unnoticed like a shadow, so that no one noticed her presence. It was as if the girl didn't have the mind to think about them, or the heart to feel emotions. The maids existed only as performers of dirty work. Anna remembered when Lizzie first came to the estate, but she didn't feel anything special when she saw the smiling girl, despite the fact that she was wearing rags. Anna, who became a maid at the age of 12, knew about grief firsthand. Since Lizzie was no longer grieving, the maid felt no pity for her. However, she treated Aaron differently, because the Countess did not draw a line in communication with the servants, was always interested in Anna's opinion and listened to her advice. The Countess always treated the maid like a human being, and it seemed so natural. Anna confessed to Aaron that she wanted her mistress to be happy. The maid never had feelings for her masters, but at one point, the mistress became just a person to her. Returning to the estate, the Countess was met by Killian. The first thing he asked was why she sold all her dresses and jewelry. Erin began to justify herself by saying that she only sold what she didn't wear. The young gentleman was concerned about the opinions of those around him, because when a married aristocrat suddenly sells her things, it leads to various thoughts not in their favor. Now, looking at it from the other side, many times high society interpreted the most insignificant events in an unusual way. For example, the refusal of an invitation to a ball was seen as pressure from the Ludwig family. No matter how hard Erin tried to be lower than grass and quieter than water, she still became Erin Rigman, a flower of the highest quality, and the Duke's daughter-in-law, and now her every minor action was noticed. The Countess apologized for not having thought of this, as she had no personal funds other than the dowry she had. Killian was angry. He didn't understand where she was spending her money if her monthly salary wasn't enough for her, and she was ready to undermine the family's reputation because of it. The girl froze. It was the first time she had heard about a monthly salary. Since Erin didn't know that she was entitled to a salary, she couldn't complain to her husband that she wasn't getting one, and in general, she wondered why he wasn't with Lizzie now. Killian replied that it didn't matter now, grabbed his wife by the hand, and quickly dragged her somewhere. The young master was angry because Erin never told him anything, but kept everything to herself. She was always like this, even when the maid sent by her father did terrible things. Even when Erin was starving after being poisoned, did she really think Killian couldn't protect her? Erin admitted that there are some things she can't talk about, no matter how much she wants to. The young gentleman came to the conclusion that while he could not believe what she said, she would have to accept it. Also, Killian said that he would buy back everything that Erin sold. The girl flatly refused this, since she really didn't need these things. The guy asked Erin to tell Renan to prepare the papers for paying her salary immediately. It didn't matter now. Being in the same carriage with Cliff, who kept his eyes on the Countess, she wanted to understand what he wanted from her. The guy smiled stupidly and said that when she looked at him with such suspicion, even he started to get nervous. Erin apologized, admitting that she felt a little awkward. Cliff admitted that even though they are a family, they don't spend much time together. However, he and Killian have become much closer lately. Smiling politely, the Countess replied that this had only been going on for a few days, and who knew what would happen in the future. Cliff clearly wanted to provoke Erin into a conflict, as he responded that it was useless to even compare with how much time Killian spent in the company of Lizzie. However, he hoped that his brother would continue to show interest in his wife. Erin pretended not to understand what this conversation was all about. Cliff's intentions were absolutely clear, so he asked the girl not to pretend that she didn't understand anything. He said outright that he wanted Lizzie, and the Countess wanted Killian, and they would both benefit if their lovers didn't look at each other. Erin stopped him, saying that he most likely misunderstood her. Even though she was his wife, she did not pursue the goal of chaining the guy to herself. It sounded beautiful to the guy, but he didn't believe the lady, thinking that when her brother started behaving like before, she wouldn't be able to say those words again. The Countess asked what he meant by this. Killian loves to swim on the lake. As soon as the water gets warmer, he starts to go out on the water. Mom always said that summer starts when Killian's sail starts to turn white. With the arrival of Lizzie and their family, they often spent time on the guy's yacht. After Erin appeared in Killian's life, the guy stopped going out on the water. Also, the guy was very interested in art, and if his wife praised everything he did, that could work too, because he had a complex that his brother was always ahead of him. Erin just listened to all this silently and wondered when he would stop talking nonsense. Was the relationship between the brothers really that bad in the original novel? No matter how fierce the battle for the heroine's heart was, the Countess thought that because they were blood brothers, they at least loved each other a little. In conclusion, Cliff said that if Erin used his tips, then both she and Killian would come out on top. The guy abruptly changed the subject and asked if the Countess knew the maid Sabina. The girl had no idea who Sabina was. Cliff explained that she was a thin brunette with freckles, but if she didn't know her, then okay, but it would be better if she did. As they parted, the gentleman wished Erin a good time with the princess. As soon as the Countess entered the palace, she was ordered to change her clothes and had to obey. Then she was taken to the stables, where Princess Catherine was waiting for her. The princess heard that her guest had never ridden a horse, so she demanded that she follow her, and Her Majesty decided to personally teach the girl how to ride. For a moment, Erin thought that Catherine was trying to get revenge for her insolence at their last meeting. The princess admitted that Killian had asked her to do this, and the Countess was shocked by what she heard. It turned out that Catherine was no less surprised than Erin when she heard this request. Such a strange request was made because the place where Killian wants to move is not as busy as the capital. Of course, the wife of an aristocrat can travel in a carriage, but in case of heavy snowfall, it will be extremely difficult. The young gentleman himself wanted to teach his wife to ride, but he did not have the attention necessary for teaching. So Catherine was the only person he could trust with this. The princess still couldn't understand why Killian was doing all this. Although the girl had not yet shown any interest in politics, no matter what concerned the members of the Rigman family remained a secret from the Duke and Cliff. Catherine believed that this marriage was inevitable since the Ludwigs needed an alliance with the Rigman family. But did Killian think so? Once all the problems regarding the unstable situation are resolved, you can immediately get rid of things like a temporary wife, the princess said. These words angered Killian. He wondered who was saying this, his brother, his father, or high society. In any case, Catherine disappointed him. The guy thought that the princess was not the type to listen to gossip, aristocrats, and the like. Just a month ago, this woman had the last name Rigman, so all her crimes are also rumors. Or does Killian want to say that she has no connection with her father? Asked Catherine. The young master confirmed that the princess might find it hard to believe, but he was sure that Erin had nothing to do with her father's affairs. He didn't want to go into details and ask the princess to take his word for it, but the whole situation seemed like a complete farce. Catherine admitted that Killian was right about Erin. It was very funny to summon to the palace the one whom the high society considered a snake, and for no reason at all put her on a horse. The princess apologized to Erin. She thought that the girl had fooled Killian with her cowardly tricks, and she also heard that Lizzie was having a hard time with her. Catherine couldn't believe that she had said such hurtful things based on nothing more than gossip. Even someone she respected had pointed out this ugly part of her to her. The princess, more than anyone else, should not have spoken like that. Although it was impudent on her part, the girl asked Erin to accept her apology, holding out her hand. Besides, they said that Killian was a much softer person than he seemed, and this turned out to be true. Erin couldn't hold back her tears. Lizzie and Killian were walking around town, on their way to a shoe store. Approaching the store, the girl discovered that it was already closed. Of course, they left a little later than planned, but they had to make it before closing. The young gentleman said that he should have been warned if Lizzie wanted to buy something special. The little goddess was the most wonderful person Killian had ever met. She was a kind person with a big heart. The young master could not wish for more than one look or a smile from her. Because it was the first time he felt something like this, he thought it was love, and it seemed like he thought it was love his whole life. It was impossible to forget about time. Over time, even the heart can change its mind, and wounds that seem to always bleed heal. Killian came to the workshop to find out how long it would take to make 4 pairs of winter sneakers. The master said that it would take at least 2 months to make that amount. The young gentleman was approaching this deadline, however. The important condition was that the boots were to his wife's taste. Hearing this conversation, Lizzie asked Killian with a look of surprise in her eyes where he was going. He said that sooner or later, when his brother inherited the title of Duke, he would have to leave the estate. Lizzie asked if he would be leaving with Erin, but Killian did not answer that question, but only asked a counter-question about why she was interested. For the girl, this news was very sudden. The Countess was one of her few friends. As a child, Lizzie was unable to make friends because of Count Sinclair. Even after Lizzie was brought to the Ludwigs, she was always under the protection of their knights, which is why she did not have many chances to meet her peers. Killian thought. The atmosphere on Darcis Street where he and Erin had walked was completely different. It's a street with a seller of cheap sweets, a girl selling wildflowers, and a clown who performs tricks all day long for just a few coins. Erin was in the company of commoners without any disgust. Nothing remained of everything she bought then. Lizzie suddenly took Killian's hand, and the guy flinched in surprise. The girl began to justify herself by saying that when the young gentleman said that he was going to leave, she felt strange. Lizzie changed the subject, found a store that was not yet closed, and invited Killian to go there. He agreed. It was a jewelry store. The girl tried on a hairpin of incredible beauty. The seller said that not every girl would look so beautiful with this accessory. Killian asked for a bill for everything Lizzie liked and sent to the address of Duke Ludwig's estate. The guy decided to give the girl gifts, since they didn't often go out into the city. Their shopping didn't end there. He suggested going to another store. He invited Lizzie to a store he liked, but it had a completely different atmosphere. The girl didn't understand why he brought her here, but as it turned out, Killian wanted to buy a gift for Erin. The young gentleman chose an elegant and sensual piece of jewelry for his wife, especially since he noticed that she never takes off the ruby pendant he gave her. The guy approached the choice of a gift for Erin very responsibly. Walking down the corridor, Cliff's attention was drawn to his brother and his wife. The girl was very happy about something. He stopped to eavesdrop. Killian gave his wife an incredibly beautiful piece of jewelry. She was delighted. The young gentleman said that if he had known that she would like it so much, he would not have stopped at just one. With joy on his face after hearing this, Cliff headed to Lizzie's room. He heard that they returned early because Lizzie felt unwell. The guy asked the girl if Killian had tried to win her over even more today. It was not like that at all. The guy turned out to be too faithful. Lizzie to some extent regretted that she had bothered him. Cliff went on the offensive, asking if he couldn't be the only one for her. He trusted her completely, and he wanted Lizzie to trust only him. The young master said bluntly that it seemed the girl had become completely disillusioned with Killian. This was either completely untrue, or Lizzie simply wasn't telling the truth. But either way, she said she was tired because they had been walking more than she expected. The girl asked what Cliff had been doing today, confessing to him that even while walking around the city, she continued to think only about him, and it would have been better if she had gone with him. The young gentleman decided to tell his interlocutor about a very interesting conversation with Erin that took place today in the carriage. Brother was saying that he was going to go out on the water this summer, and before Cliff could finish speaking, Lizzie interrupted him, asking why he was telling her this. The guy suddenly came closer to Liza, straightened her hair, and said that he lives only for her, is ready to give her anything, no matter what. She is his goddess of spring. The girl asked to look only at her. Cliff grinned and said that in that case the situation would become much more dangerous. A few days later, Erin was sitting at lunch with her husband, and she said that she hadn't seen him swimming on the lake this summer, and now was just the right weather to get out on the water. Killian was taken aback. The Countess had never been to the opera, but apparently she enjoyed boating. After a few days of thinking, she finally decided to mention the yacht in conversation, saying that on a fine day she wouldn't mind swimming and having fun. It was hard for her to decide on this because of Cliff's words, but in her past life the girl had never even ridden a catamaran, let alone a yacht. It reminded her of bouquets that no one had ever given before, so Erin didn't think she wanted anything like that. Killian said that it was dangerous to sail in a regular rowboat. It could easily capsize and cause an accident. But he had a yacht, so there was no need to worry about that. The young gentleman invited his wife to sail with him if the weather was good tomorrow, and she happily agreed. Killian ordered that his yacht be prepared. In the yard, Lizzie met Erin, who was heading somewhere, and she asked her where she was going. The Countess was very beautiful today. She told the girl that Killian invited her to sail on his yacht. Lizzie shared that the young gentleman used to take her on a yacht every year. It was a lot of fun, and he also took her fishing with him. Erin found herself thinking that right now the little goddess was showing interest in a minor character. Suddenly, Killian came up. He apologized to his wife for keeping her waiting. A few seconds later, the guy noticed Lizzie standing next to him. Laughing, she said that she went out for some fresh air and met Erin. Wishing them a good time, the girl left. The Countess realized that everything had become different. The girl was beside herself with happiness. She and her lover were sailing on the lake. There were a lot of boats around. The sun was very hot during the day, so everyone went out on the water early in the morning. On the shore stood the boatman Mr. Samuel, the man waving his hand to the couple. Erin was so interested in everything. She looked at the views from all sides, because this was the first time for her. Killian came up to her to cover her and warned her not to stretch so much. Otherwise, she would damage her muscles. The moments when their eyes met, the warmth of the young master's gaze, the time they spent happily on the lake, the way they were close together in the breeze. Erin closed her eyes and asked not to ruin the moment and finally do it. Killian stood there in confusion. After a few seconds, he realized what his wife was hinting at and immediately kissed her hard and passionately. This day was truly perfect. Erin couldn't even imagine that something terrible would happen. Everything was too perfect. The Countess was thinking what dress to wear, whether to take an umbrella from the sun, or whether it would be better to wear a hat. Samuel reported to Mr. Killian that the yacht was ready and in perfect working order. The man had checked every inch of it himself yesterday. Erin suddenly felt so happy that she thought this moment could last forever. But when you think like that, something is bound to go wrong. Killian felt uneasy when he learned that his wife had already been boating. Running his finger over the Countess's lips, the young gentleman said that they would continue when they returned to the mansion so that she would be ready. Before they even arrived on shore, the girl suggested they have a snack. Erin set a luxurious table and called her husband, who was mooring the yacht at that moment. Killian felt something was wrong. The sail began to tilt. All the food flew into the water, and along with it, his wife, the young gentleman, began to scream at the top of his lungs, but it was too late. The wet dress was too heavy, and the water, sparkling in the sun, was cold as ice. The girl saw a notification in front of her, which stated that Erin was dying in the status of a villain, and the story would follow the original plot. 3 minutes remained until death. When the Countess woke up, she saw her maid Anna in front of her, who began to scream with joy that her mistress had come to her senses. In the end, the girl did not die, but now she did not know how to accept all this. She knew from the very beginning that the author was hostile to her. He put forward conditions that the girl would not fulfill, because that would be the only way she would not be able to deviate from the original plot of the novel. However, the original plot became a bigger obstacle for her than its author, starting from the attitude of the surrounding characters towards her, ending with the events. So is Erin's life really going to be threatened by an incident that did not happen in the original? The girl couldn't even imagine it. Judging from the system messages she saw while she was unconscious, at least the original plot and the author were not the same. From the moment Erin woke up, she kept thinking about Killian, where he was now and why he didn't come right away. Anna said that the young gentleman was now interrogating Mr. Samuel. It was Mr. Samuel who prepared the yacht and was responsible for all the family's transport. The Countess caught herself wondering if all this was really no accident. Anna suddenly burst into tears, and through her tears she said that Mr. Samuel could not have done such a thing. Erin asked the nurse to immediately tell Killian that she had come to, and that she urgently needed him. At the moment when the Countess fell overboard, the young gentleman's heart seemed to stop. He saw how she was sinking into the abyss before his eyes. The guy even forgot how he swam to save her. Killian begged Erin to open her eyes. He couldn't let her die like this. The young master should have told the girl this earlier. No matter what he looked at or heard, he always thought about whether Erin would like it or not. And while he was with Lizzie, he thought about his wife all the time. Killian was interrogating Mr. Samuel. The man had worked in their house for over 10 years and had never made a mistake. The young master was sure that the man was proud of his work and how the Duke trusted him. The guy demanded an answer from Samuel to the question of who persuaded him to do this. Anna knocked on the interrogation room door with the news that the lady had woken up. Dropping everything, Killian rushed towards his beloved to hold her tightly in his arms. Aaron felt so warm and good next to him. Looking closely at her husband's face, the Countess asked why he was so pale. Killian still couldn't get over what had happened. He thought that if he waited a little longer, the girl would die. It turned out that the yacht had an unattached sail. The rope was not tied, and the yacht lost its balance, something that would never happen to a yacht that was properly prepared. Aaron tried to convince her husband that she was sure of Mr. Samuel's innocence. In the girl's opinion, this case was similar to the one with the poisoned embroidery threads that she gave to Lizzie, because why would a man do this if he would immediately be the first suspect? The Countess came to the conclusion that since the author was punished for excessive interference, it was his doing. He would try to eliminate the girl with an event that did not occur in the original novel. The only question was who he would use to do it. First, the less important a character is in the original novel, the less influenced by the original plot, such as Anne and Renan. If the author could control them, the girl would have a strained relationship with them. She would have broken down if those she trusted had let her down. But instead, the author took the hard way and created new episodes in the plot. The original itself tied the author's hands. In that case, whoever might have been behind the scenes of the event should already hate Aaron. Or this character, who naturally harms the villain Aaron, is one of the most important characters. Mr. Samuel, who is not mentioned in the original, did not fall under any of these conditions. Unfortunately, Aaron couldn't explain this to Killian, so she only said that she couldn't shake the feeling that the man had been set up. The young master ordered that Mr. Samuel be released, as there was no evidence of his guilt, so he would not be punished. Killian suggested that the man take the day off if he wanted to take a break from work. The gentleman explained his decision by saying that his wife believed that he would not do something like that on purpose or out of bribe. The guy decided to believe her, hoping that the man would not betray her trust and would continue to work in their estate. Killian didn't understand why his wife was so calm when she almost died. Of course, it was funny to compare the situation with hers, but as punishment, Aaron was reprimanded in the Duke's office and locked in a room for a probationary period, and Samuel had already been interrogated for several hours in the basement. The young master had no more arguments, so he did as his wife wanted. Aaron's pale face was still in front of his eyes. Despite all this, Killian decided that he had to pull himself together and find the culprit first. In boating accidents, women are the ones most at risk. Even a light dress will become heavy if a lady falls into the water, so it was logical that this crime was directed against the Countess. Perhaps it was Count Rigmond's revenge for sending his maid back. If it is not him, then perhaps this is the work of members of the family of Count Sinclair, who were suspects before, by the way. The person who committed the previous crimes has still not been found. Something was eluding Killian, and that something was most important. The young gentleman was informed that Mr. Samuel had come to see him and wanted to talk to him. The man began to swear that he had not staged the accident with the yacht. Even when he checked it the previous evening, it was in perfect condition. However, if someone touched the yacht, then something comes to his mind. At dawn, shortly before Killian arrived, the man took the yacht out and went away for a while. At this moment, Mr. Cliff came up and said that he needed Mr. Samuel's help in finding something of Mrs. Lizzie's. So he went around to help the gentleman search his boat. It didn't take long, but if something happened while he was gone, it was his fault, the man admitted. Killian didn't understand why he was talking about this now, because if they hadn't let him go, he would have had to sit in the basement for another couple of days. Mr. Samuel said that whoever wanted to harm the lady was walking around nearby. He could not let down such a kind and merciful lady. The young master was surprised, because the information that could not be extracted from the man through harsh interrogation came out thanks to Aaron's trust. He told this not because he was afraid of being punished, but because he was taking a risk and cooperating with the investigators for Aaron's sake. Mr. Samuel hung his head, prepared to be punished for his carelessness. Killian asked him to raise his head, saying that Aaron did not want him to be punished, and even with these details, she was unlikely to change her mind. The young gentleman thought that the man had received enough punishment for his mistake today, and now it was better for him to go home and rest. The guy found it strange that Cliff had walked all the way to the lake early in the morning to find Lizzie's thing. Remembering his meeting with Lizzie that morning, he realized that she was most likely waiting for his brother. During that incident with the threads, the stolen documents, these two almost always appeared out of nowhere. Killian remembered that in the situation with the documents, he promised Aaron to conduct the investigation fairly, but it was an illusion, neither Lizzie nor Cliff were questioned properly. One cannot be sure of their innocence. To begin with, he decided to find out who was near the lake at dawn. If there are no clues there, then it will be necessary to find a way to investigate the actions of the elder brother of the heir to the duchy and his beloved, Killian concluded. Killian spoon-feeding Erin Canella was not his character's style at all, and it seemed like her falling overboard had scared him a lot. The boy told his wife that Samuel had confessed to him the previous night that he had left the boat unattended for some time, and had asked him to convey his apologies to the lady. The young gentleman also admitted that he was able to get the information he needed from the man, only thanks to Erin. Even the fact that Killian said that was already very strange in itself. Suddenly, uninvited guests came to the couple. It was Cliff and Lizzie. With a grin, the brother said that he was very sorry that he distracted them from their intimate conversation. The guy brought Erin a bouquet of flowers and said that he was so worried about her because she suffered because of him. Grabbing his brother's hand, Killian asked what else that meant. Cliff said it was nothing special. He just wanted to show his sensitivity, since he was the one who recommended Erin to go out on the water. Naturally, in order to provoke events that did not occur in the original, a main character is needed. The more important a character is in the original novel, the more strongly the original plot influences him. Killian ordered the flowers to be put in a vase and asked her brother if he had received information that she had seen him early in the morning by the lake. Cliff confirmed everything. The girl understood that if the influence of the original plot was equal to the influence of the author, then only characters like Cliff, Lizzie, and Duke Ludwig could have provoked this event. Lizzie decided to ease the tense situation by asking how Erin was feeling. She was worried because they weren't allowed to see her yesterday. He forbade anyone to disturb Killian's wife, as the doctor advised him to remain calm. Since the Countess was unable to refuse the visitors herself, he arranged everything himself. Finishing the conversation, Killian tactfully hinted that Erin shouldn't be bothered anymore, and it was time for his brother and Lizzie to go. Looking at her husband's face, who was clearly overly worried, the girl tried to calm him down, saying that she was fine. The young gentleman was already shouting. He did not understand how Erin could be okay when the criminal was still walking free. Touching her husband's face with her hand, the girl interrupted him, asking how long ago he had last slept. Erin admitted that since yesterday, she'd been thinking that she shouldn't just jump into the water to save someone. It's very dangerous. Abruptly grabbing the Countess's hand and removing it from his face, Killian angrily asked that in that case, she was suggesting that he simply watch from the side as she drowned. That's exactly what Erin wanted to say. She didn't want the young master to drown with her. Killian had a different opinion. He promised the girl that he would be with her no matter what happened. Erin was greeted joyfully by the maids as she stepped out into the garden, and the gardeners inquired about her well-being. The Countess was perplexed. She asked Anna what had happened to everyone, why they were behaving like this. This is the reaction of the maids and other employees in the estate, because Erin helped Mr. Samuel. The man has been working in the estate for a long time and helps other workers of the estate a lot. Anna said that, in fact, Sabina had disappeared not long ago. The Countess thought this name was very familiar. A few seconds later, she remembered where she had heard it. Cliff had spoken about this girl. A few days before her disappearance, the maid said bad things about the mistress, which caused terrible rumors to spread, many saying that Erin had done something to her. Because the Countess helped Mr. Samuel while she was on the verge of life and death, all doubts were instantly dispelled. At the tea party, the aristocrats discussed the topic that was currently thundering throughout the empire, that Erin Ludwig had fallen overboard and almost drowned in the lake. The yacht tilted and the girl fell overboard. There were rumors that it might not have been an accident. Layla Sinclair couldn't hide her smile, thinking that the Duke's family had apparently decided to get rid of Erin, and perhaps Killian himself had decided to kill her. As soon as she heard that Killian himself had jumped into the water and saved her, the smile disappeared from her face. The aristocrats discussed how the young gentleman jumped into the water without thinking, risking his life, and looked so courageous at that moment. Layla wondered why he did this, if he had fallen in love with Erin. But then she seemed to come to her senses, because now the most important thing was who had arranged this incident. No one knew the details, since the progress of the investigation was not made public, but it was known that the boatman was not punished. Layla Sinclair asked her interlocutors whether the attitude towards Erin in the Duke's family had changed. According to rumors, the attitude has changed, because the Duke's only daughter-in-law almost drowned, and the culprit was not punished. Layla laughed. It was no surprise to her that there were rumors of Erin's dislike running through the family. The girl did not find out who tried to kill her, but it is obvious that the Duke's family does not plan to protect Erin's life. She could not wait until the Countess died so that she could win Killian's heart. The lady asked Anna what all the commotion was going on at the estate today. It turned out that Mr. Cliff had invited people from the weaving workshop, a workshop called Robe for Life, whose services are used in the palace. They say they were taking Liza's measurements for a dress for the founding day of the empire. The Countess spent so much time taking riding lessons that the event completely slipped her mind. The day of the empire's foundation was just around the corner, and Erin didn't even know what dress to choose for this event. Duke Ludwig announced that only a week remained until the founding day. At a family dinner, Cliff mentioned that Archduke Langston had been acting rather strange lately. The Duke thought that their enemy might use this holiday to demonstrate his strength. The elder brother thought that it would be a rather foolish act on his part, but they still had to make sure that the number of the Emperor's supporters did not decrease. Erin understood that for the Duke's family, this was less a holiday and more of a political event. In the original, the Archduke appears at the founding of the Empire in the second half of Volume 4, but in the novel, Erin was on probation, so she was not at the celebration. Perhaps at that moment they were secretly planning something with Sophia. Since the original plot mainly concerns Lizzie, the girl did not remember what role Erin had in this event. When Anna asked what the lady would wear to the event, the Countess decided that she would wear one of the dresses she had, but Killian had bought all of her outfits back anyway. Rumor has it that Erin Rigman never wore the same dress twice. But for this girl, all the outfits were completely new. The Countess entered the library where Killian was. The guy seemed to have been waiting for her for a long time. Having changed her clothes in a hurry, she asked him why he suddenly suggested going to the weaving workshop together, since he had so much to do. The guy said that he would find time for his wife, especially since he was just waiting for her to go there together, but Erin still tried to explain that she had enough outfits. Since this will be their first public appearance together since their wedding, Killian decided to wear matching outfits to help kill any rumors of discord. He asked his wife if she didn't want them to have matching clothes. That wasn't the case. Erin was worried that they wouldn't be accepted without an appointment, but it turned out that her husband had taken care of that and booked the workshop in advance. He didn't tell his wife about it only because she would have been against it, saying that it was a waste of money, in which case Killian hit the nail on the head. Renan stood silently to the side and watched the couple. In his hands he held a book called A Study of Curses, Manipulation, and Control. The couple arrived at the workshop that Killian had booked. They were greeted at the entrance by Moffat Dahlia, who was honored to have such important people visit her boutique. As Erin looked through the catalogs, she couldn't believe that her husband could like this. She really hoped that the guy didn't prefer that style, but Killian chose the boutique, thinking that it was the style that his wife liked rather than the royal weaving workshop. It turned out that a couple of months ago, Killian caught a stranger on the street wearing similar clothes and asked where he bought it, which is how he found out about this boutique. He didn't tell Erin the truth, saying only that he had simply been informed. As far as he knew, this boutique was quite popular, so he suggested that Erin pick out clothes there. Noticing one dress, Moffat Dahlia came flying up from behind, shouting that it was a fantastic choice. Having tried the dress on the Countess, the boutique owner rejoiced that it had finally found its owner. She said that many people could only dream of buying this dress, and until now, no one was worthy of it. Erin wondered if Killian really did have a keen eye. The young gentleman looked at his wife in silence. The Countess became a little nervous again. The dress seemed rather pretentious to her. She once again asked her husband how he liked her outfit. Killian couldn't drag Erin to the weaving workshop just because of the rumors of discord between them. The eldest son and heir of the family could easily come to an agreement with the workshop whose services the imperial family uses. It is for this reason that the charming main character of the novel chose him. How come Erin didn't immediately realize that Killian just wanted to escape the stage where this magnificent love story was unfolding? The young gentleman told his wife that she was very beautiful. He absolutely loved the way this dress fit her. While adjusting her hair, Erin asked if Killian had chosen his costume yet. He wanted their outfits to match, so he asked Dahlia for some advice. The boutique owner, of course, had an answer to this question. He showed the couple suits that would go perfectly with Erin's dress. After finishing the fittings and leaving the boutique, Killian thought about how he had made his choice too quickly and should have tried on something else. The girl tried to support him in every possible way, repeating that he had a keen eye for such things. Killian admitted this, as he had heard it said many times that he had keen eyesight. He suggested that his wife also pick out shoes, if she wasn't tired, of course. The boutique owner immediately recognized the gentleman and informed him that his order was ready. Killian remembered that he had ordered 2 pairs of boots and shoes from this master. Erin was a little confused as to why she needed 2 pairs of boots. Her husband reminded her that it was much colder in Raisin than here, and that she would need warm and waterproof winter boots, and now the girl understood why she was learning to ride. Killian realized that Erin also needed warm winter boots suitable for horse riding. While the master was taking measurements of the girl's foot, she thought about the fact that since it was cold and there was a lot of snow, then what kind of culture and economic situation there was. The novel didn't go into much detail about the place, so Erin knew little about it. The Countess noticed Killian's intense gaze on her and asked why he was looking at her like that. The guy was confused by this question and changed the subject, asking if she had already chosen a design for the shoes. The girl didn't even imagine that in Erin's body she would be able to live to see such a wonderful day. She caught herself thinking that her husband's attention to her was short-lived. Erin liked the strawberry-flavored black tea here last time, so they went back again. The girl really liked this place, even though it was a little noisy. For the Countess, the place meant nothing when a man with such an appearance sat in front of her. At the next table, they heard people discussing Cliff's marriage. No one knew who the heir would marry, as he had been postponing the engagement until now. The women believed that the heir would marry Sinclair's illegitimate daughter, saying that this cunning fox had seduced both brothers, and that as soon as she was accepted into the family, she had seduced both of them. Erin was angry. She was trying to cheer up Killian, and then this happened. The girl realized from the expression on her husband's face that trouble was coming after she heard the phrase that the illegitimate daughter would displace Killian's wife. Erin stood up from the table and walked to the next table. The Countess stood behind the woman, who did not even suspect anything, and continued to talk about this topic, saying that if the Duke and Duchess were still of sound mind, they would hardly give the title to an illegitimate daughter. Seeing the faces of her interlocutors, she asked why they suddenly made such faces as if they had seen a ghost. She turned around and shouted Erin Rigman's name across the cafe. Erin asked to be called Ludwig, since the woman had recently been throwing around that name. The Countess admitted that she rarely appears at balls, so she understands that high society could have wavered during this time. The elegant speech of the aristocrats was so loud that Erin managed to hear what they were saying. With obvious anger on her face, the girl said that she was not going to tolerate this any longer, asking a rhetorical question whether she would live under the same roof with the woman her husband was sleeping with. The aristocrats immediately began to justify themselves by saying that this was not what they meant at all, but that they had simply heard all this from others. Erin warned that such ridiculous rumors should not be spread, and that ladies should be more careful in the future. The Countess turned and headed towards her husband. The ladies began to hurriedly gather themselves in order to quickly leave. Killian couldn't hold back his laughter anymore. The guy couldn't be stopped, and Erin frowned and asked what made him laugh so much. The young gentleman confessed to his wife that the more he looked at her, the more she amazed him. Killian was struck by the fact that instead of being angry at him, Erin was angry at the stranger spreading rumors. The young gentleman felt guilty for allowing the rumor to spread. At the end, he added that Erin didn't love him anyway, so it didn't matter. Erin's heart was screaming with love for Killian, but she couldn't admit it to him, trying to calm herself down by saying that this character was created for Lizzie, not for her. As a result, the couple returned home with the same mood with which they left. The Countess noticed that the mansion was still not calm. The craftsman who had come to take Liza's measurements should have left long ago. The couple noticed Anna and Renan actively discussing something. Erin called out to them. The Baron and the maid were clearly agitated. They apologized for meeting their masters in such a way. But just recently, the Duke and Duchess took the Lorraine's radiance from the treasury. The Lorraine's light was the most ancient jewel of the Duchy of Ludwig. Lizzie was supposed to go out in public wearing this necklace, thereby declaring that she was part of the Ludwig family, which is probably why the jewelry was taken out of the treasury. Erin tried to calm Killian, who suddenly flared up about something and, grabbing his wife by the hand, rushed off. The young gentleman burst unceremoniously into his father's office. He asked why such a decision was made, and the Duke, raising his voice to his son, asked how he could behave like that in front of his mother. The guy said that he heard some very strange news right from the doorway, but if he had misunderstood everything, he asked to forgive him. The news was that while he and Erin were choosing outfits for the celebration, his family had pulled out Lorraine's glow. He asked indignantly if he understood correctly that they wanted Erin to wear it. The Duke explained that the Lorraine Aurora is worn by daughters-in-law of the Ludwig family and is traditionally worn on their first public appearance after their wedding. Killian was immediately delighted, since his wife had never attended any events, so now was the time. The Countess tried to stop him, but the guy seemed not to hear her, getting ready to go and pick out earrings to match the necklace. Suddenly, Erin started screaming that she didn't want to wear the necklace. The Ludwig family froze with surprise on their faces. The girl came up with a ridiculous excuse that her dress had gold details, and if you imagine how red hair would look with a gold dress and blue decoration, then everyone would laugh. She pushed her husband in the shoulder so that he would quickly apologize and they would leave. Erin forcibly threw her husband out the door, apologizing that they were very tired and it would be better to go rest. The Ludwigs still hadn't said a word, but just looked at this scene with surprise. Lizzie began to apologize that all this happened because of her and that Erin would be upset. Mother asked her not to take everything so seriously because it was their personal decision. Cliff tried to cheer the girl up by taking her to her room to rest. The Duke was shocked by Killian's actions. He had no idea that his son was capable of such a thing. The Duchess wondered if she was getting old, because if Lizzie really was the first one to go out in public wearing this jewelry, it would put Erin in an awkward position. The Countess tried to reason with her husband for his actions. She thought that he decided to calmly discuss everything, but what he did was very rude towards his parents. She asked why Killian was so angry. He didn't even think about what Lizzie would feel. She was there too, right in front of him. But the young master remained silent, which made Erin even more angry. Finally, the guy broke the silence, asking his wife if it didn't make her angry that Lizzie, who didn't even bear their last name, would go out into society with a family jewel that she had never had the chance to wear. Killian was very worried about what people would say about his chosen one. His hand squeezed Erin's tightly, and he said that maybe her parents hadn't thought of it. But did she know that she had been the talk of high society lately? And what will they say after the day of the foundation of the empire? Erin didn't understand what else she could hear. The rumors in the cafe touched her. She didn't think that another rumor would somehow suppress her. The girl was used to being treated with prejudice, called vile and vulgar Erin Rigman, vain, nasty, dissolute, more of a snake than a person. Killian wasn't talking about that at all, but about other rumors that would start circulating about her. That their relationship is so bad, it couldn't get any worse. That if they got divorced, no one would even be surprised that Erin treated Lizzie so cruelly that even the servants hated her. The Countess didn't even care about such gossip. She knew that she would simply crush them into dust, just like those ladies in the cafe. She believed that if they were already saying such things about her, then how could her reputation get any worse? Killian didn't let the girl finish, hugged her face, and said that when everyone around him said that his future wife was a bitch, he thought that his life would become terrible. He never thought that thanks to Erin, his life would become so wonderful. Killian smiled and added that it seemed like the right atmosphere was now for the Countess to close her eyes and for him to kiss her. It would be a lie to say that Erin isn't bothered by this. People at the bottom of the empire's foundation will say nasty things about it. The awareness of this pain, the resentment, the anger, the anxiety had no meaning. It didn't matter because her husband was so kind to her. Killian stopped to check on Erin's health after the incident on the yacht, but the girl was eager to continue what they had started and not engage in conversation now. Lizzie was walking in the garden. She heard a familiar voice and saw Princess Catherine riding a horse ahead. This time, Her Majesty decided to set up a picnic area. Lizzie thought the idea was great, and Catherine added that she was trying to satisfy her hunger after her riding lessons with Erin. The little goddess's expression immediately changed, and she asked the princess if she had misheard what she had said about Erin. The girl said that she had recently been teaching the Countess how to sit in the saddle. She certainly had no talent, but she was a very diligent student. After school, the girls spent time in interesting conversations, and Erin's jokes were funny. Catherine said that Erin told her about Lizzie's health, that she had already recovered, and the princess was worried about her. Her Majesty asked her interlocutor what she had been doing lately, but she simply remained silent. The princess asked what was wrong with her. The girl seemed to come to life, starting to justify herself that everything was fine. She was just thinking. The girl didn't believe Lizzie, saying that if she didn't want people to worry about her, then she should tell them what was going on. The little goddess was still upset about the incident with the poisoned threads, that the criminal was still at large. Catherine recalled the girl's desire to stop the investigation. With tears in her eyes, Lizzie said that she didn't want to know who hated her enough to kill her, so she thought it would end by asking for the investigation to be stopped. But soon the maid appeared and blamed Erin for everything. She suddenly disappeared and was later found dead. Lizzie had no idea what could have happened to her and blamed herself for wishing to close her eyes to the truth. Catherine began to reassure the girl that it was not her fault. The long-awaited day of the founding of the empire. Killian was skeptical that his wife would be satisfied with just this pendant, which she planned to wear for the celebration. This was Erin's favorite pendant, so she decided to wear it. Besides Lorraine's sparkle, there were many other antique pieces of jewelry in the duchy, and Killian suggested that they talk to his mother about giving something to the Countess. Erin knew her mother wouldn't refuse her, but she thought that if she wore anything else, she would look envious. After thinking about it, Killian realized that his wife was right and that rumors could start spreading because of this. The Countess saw no problem in wearing this pendant, since she always wore a piece of her husband's heart around her neck, and for her it was very valuable. This ruby pendant was the first thing Killian gave Erin. It seemed that the girl was almost ready. She asked her husband to help her put on the pendant. This gesture was the first one shown to her. Killian admitted that the pendant suited her very well, but it was too small. Who knew that the girl was not so greedy? All attention at the evening, of course, was focused on the main character. People were whispering that the Sinclairs' illegitimate daughter was walking hand in hand with the heir. And would she really become Ludwig's daughter-in-law? Erin knew right away that the evening was going to be spectacular. In the Countess's opinion, the best-looking person at today's ball was not Lizzie or Killian, but the Duchess. Erin didn't expect this dress to fit her so well. After all the dresses ordered from the royal workshop were sent, the Duchess really liked the one that Lizzie chose for her. What Erin chose for her, her mother never wore. The Countess thought that she simply didn't fit her style, but she would never have guessed that the woman was simply saving it for a special occasion. The Duchess received a lot of compliments about the dress from aristocrats. The woman admitted that Erin chose this dress for her. Mother introduced the ladies to her daughter-in-law, the wife of her youngest son, Killian, Erin Ludwig. The girl froze in surprise. It seems that there was no such scene in the original. Killian insisted that his wife approach the ladies and introduce herself, and surprisingly, everyone was very polite to her. Having invited his wife to dance, the young gentleman asked her how she had found her first acquaintance with the aristocrats. Erin laughed. She had already forgotten the names of everyone who introduced themselves to her. Killian said that it doesn't matter now, but what's important is not to forget the dance moves. Although Erin had a hard time remembering names, her body was able to master dance moves perfectly. She just had to surrender to the music. After immediately apologizing for his rudeness, Killian asked his wife if she had mastered the dance skill while dancing with other men. Distracted, Erin replied that men who were jealous of the past did not attract her. Layla Sinclair was furious, and her brother just mocked her, saying how could this have happened? Didn't Killian Ludwig try to kill Erin Rigman? She was also infuriated by the fact that Lizzie showed up with the family jewel around her neck. Was she really being matched with Cliff? The brother and sister didn't understand what was going on here. Everything was really strange. Erin became completely different. She was beautiful before, but somehow gloomy. Now, on the contrary, she shone brighter than everyone else, and yet she had married for convenience to an enemy of the family. Layla couldn't bear the fact that Erin had captured the heart of Killian, whom she adored so much, and the girl swore that she would never forgive her for it. When the dance came to an end, the Countess asked her husband why his ears were so red, and whether her tempo had been too fast for him. In that case, she suggested that the young master take a rest. Erin's face suddenly changed dramatically. Immediately noticing this, Killian asked what happened. Count Rigman stood before them, with a smile on his face. He greeted his daughter and her husband, saying that he was so glad to see them because they had not seen each other since the wedding. The man asked Killian to leave them alone with their daughter for a while. He missed her so much that he wanted to talk to her alone. The girl didn't know what to do. Perhaps because she had specifically awakened Erin's memories for the dance. She couldn't even look the Count in the eye. If the original restrictions were still in effect, would she be able to refuse him now? It might have seemed to everyone that he was the perfect father, but everything was not so at all. Taking his wife's hand firmly, Killian replied that what the Count wanted to say was why he had to leave. He didn't think it was necessary. This made Rigman angry. He didn't expect to hear that. In a raised voice, he told Killian how he dared to be rude to his father-in-law. He just wanted to discuss a few issues with his beloved daughter. Changing the subject, the young gentleman asked how the maid he had sent to their estate as a gesture of goodwill was doing. The Count began to justify himself, without saying anything intelligible about the maid, only that everyone already knew that there were terrible gossips about his daughter. He sent Sophia to work on her daughter's behavior, but the girl was a very strict teacher. Erin was extremely surprised that Killian had taken her side, or that he was still suspicious of her and was trying to interrupt the conversation. The Countess realized that she could speak, said that she was fine and that her father should not worry. Having failed to achieve what he wanted, the Count turned around and left, saying that he was happy for his daughter, whispering under his breath that he had spent his entire life raising Erin, and she was so ungrateful. The Countess's face sank, wondering why she was so nervous and whether she would be able to answer Killian now. As if nothing had happened a minute ago, the young master announced that the Emperor would soon arrive here. They should greet him as a family. Would Erin mind going and saying hello? The girl's mind was only on the situation with her father and the fact that Killian didn't even ask the reason. She extended her hand to her husband, saying that she would be happy to greet the Emperor. The families of the aristocrats took turns coming up to greet His Majesty. Erin wondered if that scene would happen when their turn came. An incident was about to occur at the ball that would shock everyone, as the friendship between the princess and Lizzie would be revealed for the first time. But then why was the princess looking straight at Erin? In this scene, high society had to recognize Lizzie. After everyone saw Lorraine's glow on her and then learned about her close relationship with the princess began to make her speech, saying that all that pleased her about this pretentious celebration was the opportunity to see all the people dear to her together. Duke and Duchess Ludwig, as well as their children, her friend Lisi, who is especially beautiful today, and Erin Ludwig, summed up Katrin. Her Majesty asked Erin if she and Killian had decided to wear matching outfits, but without waiting for an answer, she said that there were many different kinds of gossip in high society, but there were always good relations between members of the Ludwig family. Now that they have been seen like this, it is unlikely that anyone will continue to believe these ridiculous rumors. The princess also added that she had always invited Lizzie and Erin separately to spend time together, but next time she would invite them both. The Duchess thanked Catherine. She was flattered to hear that Her Majesty valued her children so much. Lizzie drooped, lowering her head down. Noticing this, Cliff asked if everything was okay with her. The girl assured that yes, she was just nervous because of the Emperor's greeting. The Countess sat down to rest. Her legs were hurting. At that moment, Killian brought her a glass of champagne. The more the girl thought about this scene, the less she understood what was happening. At this ball, Lizzie was supposed to be the only one in the spotlight, but she had to share the spotlight with the villain Erin. The girl did not yet know the conditions of the third stage, but perhaps it was somehow connected. Erin noticed her father talking to a man about how only people with impeccable pedigrees could be trusted. The man's voice sounded very familiar to her. It was Archduke Langston. Count Rigmon called him a member of the royal family and his most loyal subject. The Archduke was very close to the late Emperor, and it is difficult to maintain good relations in the imperial family. Erin noticed how openly her father sided with Langston. By saying that life was better before, they emphasized that the reign of the current emperor was worse than the previous one. However, not all aristocrats dared to voice this out loud under the current ruler. With a grin on his face, Count Rigmon said that the current emperor was doing his best for the well-being of the courtiers, even though he was too young for this throne. He added that he felt sorry for the emperor and princess because he remembered them as children. The princess heard all this fiery speech, and with tears in her eyes, she rushed away. After apologizing to his wife, Killian rushed after Catherine, warning Erin that if her father came to her again, he should scream at the top of his lungs, and that he would take all the problems upon himself. The Countess heard the ladies gossiping about her, that she was pretending to be ill, using the hackneyed excuse that her legs hurt. Layla Sinclair said she heard it was a marriage of convenience, and that Erin Rigmon was being held hostage, and that Count Rigmon had just turned against the Emperor. The Countess's interest was aroused. It turns out that the aristocrats knew better than she about the current situation. She finally realized that she no longer had to guess what the conditions were at stage 3. But still, she couldn't allow the Ludwig family name to be subjected to dirty gossip. With her head held high, Erin walked up to the ladies and said that, no matter what, she was the one who became Killian Ludwig's wife. The Countess casually said that the ladies had probably already heard that in the event of a divorce, she was promised alimony and her own mansion. In the worst case, she would live comfortably, eating up all the money due to her. She will be rich, her face and figure are beautiful. It would be nice to have several lovers then, and then, if she wants, she will marry again, Erin mocked. Unable to contain her anger, Layla Sinclair called the Countess a simple leash who had attached herself to Killian. This phrase really amused the girl. She asked if Layla herself lived the same way. Before marriage she lived off her father, and after the wedding she would live off her husband. The girl was clearly already beside herself. She was shouting at Erin that she really thought they were alike. The Countess, hand on heart, declared that they were completely different, and that she was not a lady who was choking with envy because she did not marry Killian Ludwig. Seeing her husband behind her, Erin turned to him and asked him to tell her if she was flirting with him. The young master asked the question again, because where was the coquetry and where was Erin? He said that if the Countess knew how to flirt, then let her flirt, but only with him. The girl pressed herself against her husband's chest, saying that he was the best. The aristocrats were beside themselves with anger and envy. The more Aaron played the role of the villain, the more she enjoyed it. Killian decided to warn his wife just in case that he had been friends with Catherine since childhood, and there was nothing else between them. The guy had not been close to any of the girls since childhood, but the princess was like a sister to him, even closer than Cliff, the Countess reassured him, because she was not worried about this at all. It even upset the guy a little that Aaron wasn't jealous of him at all. The Countess could not even imagine that such a relationship would exist between her and Killian. How desperate she was when she learned about the special conditions. Until Aaron Rigman completes the third stage, she will not be able to unlock the hidden settings. Having forgotten all hope, the girl was ready to run away. She could live anywhere alone. She just wanted a quiet life, as if she was dead to this world. How hard it was for her until now. Only her mother believed in her innocence. Aaron made friends who opened their hearts to her. People who wished her happiness extended their hands. She really wanted to stay with them. Killian asked why his wife was looking at him like that. Aaron asked her husband to dance one more dance. The young gentleman happily agreed. Layla Sinclair couldn't believe how her beloved Killian could fall in love with another. The girl found a letter on the windowsill. The letter was addressed to her, and it read that someone had seen her angry at the leash that had attached itself to the Ludwig family, and that someone had written to her because he thought he had found in her the very person with whom he could achieve more. The unknown person invited the girl to join him. Join in to get rid of Aaron Rigman. The stranger had an excellent way to get rid of the Countess, but to implement it, Layla Sinclair's help was needed. The unknown person indicated the address where he would wait for the girl. She definitely came to the specified address, but who could have arranged a meeting with her in such a place? Opening the doors to the barn, the girl saw a guy in front of her who told her that he had been waiting. On his robe, Layla Sinclair noticed a familiar coat of arms. It was the family coat of arms of the Ludwig family, as she thought. This girl had become boring to the Ludwigs too. With a smirk on her face, Layla asked to be led inside, and the young gentleman happily escorted her inside. The next morning, Aaron walked into Renan's office with a smile on her face. On the table, the Countess has a familiar book. It seems they looked at it last time with Killian. Coming up from behind, Renan pressed the Countess against her and closed the book that had so interested her in front of her. The girl, taken by surprise, pushed the Baron away. Renan Filch began to justify his actions. Aaron assured him that everything was fine. It was she who put him in an awkward position with her curiosity. The guy changed the subject, saying that he had heard that the Countess was so tired at the bottom of the empire that she spent the whole day yesterday in her room, resting. Yesterday, Killian grabbed his wife, saying that now it was time to pay for the way she seduced him during the dance at the celebration. The young master warned her not to think that she would be able to get out of bed tomorrow. The maids who were watching this scene could not take their eyes off the couple. Aaron admitted that she had missed work so often that she had not seen Renan for a long time, but the Baron believed that she was, after all, a lady of that family, and it was not her responsibility. The Duke's assistant reported that from today, the girl would have access to documents concerning Raisin. This is where she will go soon. Although this place is far from the capital, but it has great potential. The documents that Aaron Renan gave contain tax and production reports for the past 5 years. Since the Countess will be managing this territory together with Mr. Killian, it will be useful for her to study these documents. Cliff will inherit the title of Duke, and Raisin will go to Killian. After this, having received the title of Count, Killian will leave the ducal mansion and start his life elsewhere. Killian lived in constant solitude, remaining a secondary male character until the very end of the novel. But if they can overcome this episode together, then Aaron will be by his side. They will leave behind the capital life, where it was impossible to defeat Cliff. If the couple makes a joint effort to develop this area and try to get involved with the lives of those who live there, even if he doesn't love Aaron sincerely, can't they live a happy life together like Count and Countess Raisin? The Countess was deep in her work when Renan distracted her with his strange question as to whether Lady Lizzie Sinclair was causing her any inconvenience. Of course, there was no denying all the confusion that was going on. But there were no inconveniences, Aaron replied. The next day, while having tea with Lizzie, the girl told the Countess that she had heard that she and Killian were leaving soon, so she would like to take a walk together to the Rue La Belle Marie. Aaron agreed that once she moved, it would be difficult to find anything truly beautiful. The day of the foundation of the empire had passed, the street was already decorated for the end of the year, and it would be nice to buy gifts and just walk along the street. Erin began to make excuses that she had so much work lately and absolutely no time. In her head, she was thinking about why Lizzie didn't go for a walk with Cliff again. It would have been stupid for the girl to go out with the villainous Erin if this had been the original novel, but it's no wonder she suggested it now. In the original novel, Lizzie was devilishly charming. Throughout the novel, she was unable to make friends with girls her own age. The exception was Princess Catherine. The princess became the only female character who, in the chapter of Catherine's development, spent time with Lizzie on La Belle Marie Street. But at the bottom of the Empire's founding, it turned out that Erin had gotten in the way of the friendship between the two. Perhaps the offer that was supposed to go to Catherine went to the Countess by pure chance. Lizzie, hearing the refusal, began to apologize. She didn't think it would turn out so awkward. It was very similar to the scene in the original novel. Erin said there was nothing inconvenient about it. It was just that she usually walked on Rue d'Arcis, not La Belle Marie. Lizzie was delighted. It was the first time she would walk like this with her friend. There were so many beautiful things and different shops there. Killian burst into Erin's room asking where he and Lizzie were going. The wife said that they were going to Rue La Belle Marie to go shopping and just take a walk. Killian was outraged that she didn't go there even with him. The Countess reminded her that her husband had told her that he needed to go to the palace that day, and it was unlikely that he would be able to come in the middle of the day to such a crowded place. The young gentleman recalled the princess's words at the founding of the empire, that she would like to see the two girls in her palace so that they could spend time together. It was a mystery to Erin why her husband had reacted so harshly. Perhaps he was still afraid that he would hurt Lizzie.